We're finally here, everybody. The Survivor YouTuber season rankings list. We've been kind of building this up for the entire summer leading up into Survivor 43. We want to break down all 42 seasons of Survivor. Now, good or bad, depending how you think about it, today we're talking about the worst seasons of all time. We're joined by my co-host, Flynnmasters. How's it going, Flynn?
What's up, guys? Super excited. This is something I wanted to see for the longest time. So, to actually be the one to come up with this idea and set it up and co-host it, actually be a part of it. Super surreal feeling. And yeah, even though we're talking about the worst seasons, it's still going to be super exciting.
Yeah, awesome. And we have here joining YouTube in October of 2017 and now with over 136,000 subscribers, exploding onto the internet with top 5 Survivor videos, creating the blueprint of edited Survivor videos on YouTube, first tuned in to watch Survivor, episode 10 of Tokenshins almost 5,000 days ago. Peridiam, how's it going?
Russell, wow, that was probably the most elaborate introduction I've ever had. Thank you. It's going really well. The moment you reached out, I'm like I'm always down to talk about Survivor. You know that. I'm excited to be here. I've never been a part of anything like this, and it's really cool that there's even a thing that exists like this. That's 5 years ago, this would never have even been an idea, and now here we are, and we get to dish on, I guess, some of the worst seasons of Survivor for the next few hours. So, yeah, happy to be here.
And two friends who love discussing everything Survivor hope to one day play the game and be prepared with their awesome do it themselves challenges. Started their channel back in high school with sharing their love of the show in physics class. The Survivor scholars, Rachel and Alyssa. How's it going?
What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you so much for the invite. We are so excited to be here to talk about these worst 11 seasons here today. So yeah, my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and yeah, everything Rachel said, we're super excited to be here. We love podcasting about Survivor. We love live streaming about Survivor. I just flashed back to physics class, which was something I was hoping never to relive, but that's okay. Yeah, we're hyped to be here.
Awesome. So we're going through what we ranked as season 42, the 42 best season of all time, into season 32. You'll have to see what that's going to be. And at some point during this video live stream, we're going to be doing a Survivor Buff giveaway. Look at that on screen. So crazy. So you'll have to stay tuned for that. How these rankings worked, it was a long process figuring all this stuff out. I got the rankings from every single one of these people, these content creators together. And I said, rank your best season to the worst season. The best season they gave 42 points to, and the worst season they gave 1.2. Basically, after all that, did some Excel stuff, averaged it all out, and now we have the official Survivor YouTuber season rankings throughout these 4 podcasts every single Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, leading up to Survivor 43. The big question, though, is we kind of left it super wide open, is what did you base these rankings on? Because everyone can do it in so many different ways. I'll start with you, Flynn. How did you base your Survivor season rankings?
So I will admit, I am more of a gameplay type. I know for most people, they're all about characters. I am actually probably more of a gameplay type. But, again, a mixture of both how much I enjoyed this season, how many episodes of the season I enjoyed. And if there's some really ugly part of the season I just can't look over, I'll knock that down quite a bit. And I will say, one thing I will say, I have tried to rewatch most seasons. I haven't rewatched every season. And some of those times on the rewatch, it went way up. Sometimes they went way down. So that's something to keep in mind for my rankings. And I'll definitely touch on those rewatch seasons when they come. But yeah, so just kind of a mixture of everything, honestly.
And I'll go with you, Peridiam, next. How do you base your rankings? Because I know everyone's been looking forward to, oh my God, Peridiam season rankings for so long.
Yeah, I've just been procrastinating for 5 years.
There you go.
And you do technically have the list, even though we're going to be unveiling everyone's. This is an aggregate ranking, so I don't know if we're going to get into the nitty gritty, individual rankings. Maybe we'll call some people out for some of their hot takes.
Oh, we will. Trust me.
There's possibly the hottest take of the entire 4 podcasts in this one, in my opinion. But I'm interested to talk about it. I based mine just on how much I enjoyed the season overall. It's pretty. It's a combination of lots of things. Strategy is a part of it. The history of the show and what it gave to the show. How much I enjoyed the players. How much I enjoyed the winner. A big part of it was how much I enjoyed watching the season live when it was airing, and because it's a different to rewatch a season, knowing what happens. Sometimes I enjoy a season more in a rewatch, which is good because I end up rewatching it more. I can't really relive that experience of waiting a week for an episode. But then also conversely, like a lot of my least favorite seasons we're gonna see are seasons that I did watch live, because the pain of waiting a week for another episode that I didn't enjoy is like worse than binging it. So yeah, that's what I based it on.
Alyssa, what about you?
I think for me, a lot of it depended on whether or not I liked the winner, both as like a player and as a person. I feel like there are some Survivor winners where it's like they were a really great Survivor player, but like I kind of don't like them as a person, and that makes it really difficult to celebrate them like winning $1 million, because like no one wants someone they hate to become a millionaire. So that was definitely a big part of it. And then also just like how much I remembered of the season, whether or not there were any like great moments, because I feel like a lot of the Survivor seasons that are bad aren't necessarily bad because they're like bad. They're bad because like they're forgettable, or they're bad just because you don't care what happens. So I feel like there were some Survivor seasons where I was like, what even happened in this season? I look at this cast photo and I do not remember a single one of these people. So yeah.
And Rachel, what about you?
Yeah, definitely what everyone else has already said. A lot of it was my enjoyment of the season. Did I like the season or not? Are there a lot of good characters in this season? Like, was it an overall fun watch for the entire season? In addition to that, like, strategy aspect. So with the legacy of the season, did this season change Survivor with that strategy, with that meta game of Survivor? You know, how likely am I to recommend this season to a friend or someone who has never watched Survivor before? If it's a season I would recommend, I would probably rate that a little bit higher than a season that I would never, ever, ever recommend to a friend. And then, yeah, how much I remember from this season, just looking at the title, looking at the cast.
Yeah, for me personally, it was a full combination of things. Okay, how much did I enjoy that season the first time watching it? Spoiler alert, my first full season I watched was Cook Islands, so I really love that season.
Oh, that explains that.
Controversial there in that take. And then we have here in the comments, in the chat, this guy's saying Cambodia is the worst. Well, I think Cambodia is the second best. So it's going to be lots of hot takes throughout this entire series. I'm super excited for that. Okay, drum roll, please. Everyone in the chat, I want you to predict what you think we ranked the worst season of all time.
I already see a couple.
Yeah, so this season only got 47 points total. For a little comparison, the best season got 480 points. So a big change there. The only classic old school season we'll be discussing today with Survivor Thailand. For a little context, I rated this one the 38th best. Flynnmasters ranked it 40 out of 42. Rachel 40 out of 42. Alyssa 40 out of 42. And then Peridiam actually ranked this the best out of all of us with 34 out of 42. So, Peridiam, I'll start with you because you actually ranked this season the best out of all of us. 34 for your ranking. Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting. In the time that I sent you the ranking, which was, I don't know, a month or two ago, I ended up rewatching 2 seasons. And just last night, I finished up my rewatch of Survivor Thailand. It's the only season that my wife and I started getting into Survivor when she met me. And for the last 10 years we've been together, I've gotten her to rewatch almost every season of the show, or to watch every season of the show, which is a big part of why I'm able to like remember so much, is I've gone back and rewatched them with her and experienced the show with her. And then Thailand was the one I saved for last, not because I wanted to finish with a bang, mostly just because it's like the least relevant season in the scheme of the show and the history of it. And it's like one of the last seasons I would recommend to anyone to, get into it. And wow, it was excruciating. I think it was probably her least favorite season that she's watched, and didn't end on a high note. So it's also the freshest in my mind. I would actually probably have it lower than I give it now. Like, I would probably put it in my bottom 5, and there's not a lot to love. I think what I did like compared to the first few is that it has a lot more flavor, and as far as like the aesthetic with the tribal council, the challenge, it has like probably the coolest looking tribal council set. And the whole props and all that, they really go all out trying to infuse like Thailand into the season, which is like something you don't get with modern Survivor or a lot of seasons in general. I thought that was really cool. I think if you pay attention to the challenge types, there's a lot of like interesting challenges that they just don't do again.
Tax zone.
Yeah, the tax zone, they don't do that very often, but they did it there.
Yeah.
Right. But it's one of the highlights of the season.
Yep.
they did the 21 flags, which is a controversial one because it's technically not a great challenge, but still interesting that they tried it. And I kind of appreciate that. I still knew it was going to be pretty low overall, which is why I had it low, even though I hadn't rewatched it when I sent the ranking in. Yeah, I don't love it. It's just the cast is like, what would a Survivor season look like if a lot of the cast was just not very likable, or like they were not really telegenic, great on TV. They didn't really pop on camera, and then they run the game like Chewigan runs the game. And this is what you get. And in a way that's kind of unique because most seasons of Survivor have heroes and they have underdogs that you're rooting for. Thailand doesn't really have that. Like you're not rooting for most of these people. You kind of have to go out of your way. I feel like this is a season for people who love like black licorice. like people love it. I don't love it. I don't know anyone who does love it personally, but I also don't like
out there.
Right. So I'm like, I can understand there's some appeal. It's not for me. I don't think it's for most people. Yeah, that's where I'm at. That's my high praise.
Well, there you go. The high praise for the crazy 34 ranking out of 42. Interesting enough, averaging everything out, I don't know how that works. That's math. There's only one person that actually ranked this the worst season of all time, but with all the rankings together, it ended up being our worst. And that was the Survivor Buff Gideon. But we have a bunch of people here that ranked this the 40th out of 42. Flynn, Rachel, and Alyssa. Flynn, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the season?
Well, first of all, I think I had as 41, but I mean, to your point about the tech, so one of the best parts about this season is some 23-year-old scared dude choking out some middle-aged man. Like, if that's one of the highlights of your season, you know, you're really searching for some positive things to talk about. I mean, just going off what you say, Peridiam, it's the boring pagonging. None of the people that are interested, even the people who are pagonged, like, they're not even interested either. Like, you know, they're either uninteresting. I mean, I do like Rob's arc throughout this season. He has a cool little pre-merge arc. And I will say, like, you know, it is pretty interesting to see, like, Brian, especially in old school Survivor, where there's 20 million people watch each week. And he was already a pretty rich guy, obviously. To see him not give a crap about any of those people. I mean, just look at that jury question from Penny. Like, he did not give a damn about any of those people. He just wanted to win that $1 million. So, I mean, I guess that's kind of interesting in that regard. But just, I mean, between ugly moments, boring, bad personalities, I mean, you're really having to search for some positives for this season. So, yeah.
If you had to pick one most iconic moment from the season and taking away the attack zone, because I think that's the most obvious, is there anything you could really pick, Rachel?
Oh, honestly, what Peridiam said about the 21 flags challenge, like, as a challenge, that is so easily won because if you just know the strategy, Alyssa and I did a DIY challenge of this. If you know the strategy, you can easily win this challenge. So it's sort of unfair if you think about it, where if you just know it, then you could win it for your team. So I think another bad thing about this season would be that fake merge twist. Like, I feel like it's sort of similar to the hourglass twist now, where Jeff might be tricking or deceiving the castaways into thinking a certain thing is happening. Like, obviously, these people in season 5 are going to think, hey, we're on the same beach. This is probably a merge. You are not going to assume it's a fake merge because that has never happened before. So it just really affects the rest of the season where, like, Xian thinks it's the merge and then is going to flip. And then you have that pagonging for the rest of the real merge. So I think the fake merge is one of the bad things about this season.
And bouncing on that a little bit, Alyssa, what do you obviously we get Xian return for Survivor All-Stars. Is there anyone else from this cast where you're like, oh, I really wish we got them to come back for a future season of Survivor? Or are you kind of happy that Jeff Probst left this season alone?
I'm pretty happy that Jeff Probst left the season alone. I feel like the only other person I could see realistically coming back would be Brian if he came back for like Winners at War or like an All-Stars type season. But part of the reason that I ranked Thailand so low is because I don't really like Brian. Like, I feel like he makes me feel kind of slimy. And so I feel like it would definitely be interesting to watch him play again, but I'm not sure I would enjoy watching him play again. So
we got this comment. I wish Rob came back. I think that'd be pretty cool. That pre-merge character come back. For every single one of these seasons, I have a rapid fire question to end things off with, where I'm going to challenge everyone in the chat to be involved as well, trying their best to answer the question. And I'm going to be targeting out one of my panelists, one of my co-hosts, to answer the question on the spot as well. So this first one, starting off, is fairly easy. Chat, get involved. I want you answering this as well. Flynnmasters, is Or should Brian be considered a top tier Survivor winner? Is he, and should he be?
Oh man, like I said, that's such a tough one because I mean he dominated the season, but again it's season 5. I honestly, in my winner rankings, I do have him pretty high. Maybe not, man. I mean, what do you consider top tier? Like top 5, top 10? Because like,
let's say top 10.
Yeah, okay, then in that case I would consider. I mean, he's just so dominant. But I mean, he almost lost to Clay Jordan. You know, like I don't know. So that's the thing. He's so dominant, but I probably would because of just how dominant. Again, really the first ever true dominant winner of the show, which again is one of the things I actually kind of like. You know, if I had to pick a positive, I do like. Let's see. I wonder what the chat says, because that's always, some people have him as literally as the GOAT, and some people say mid tier, right? So
people say mid tier, not top 20. No, we got one yes in here. I see. So pretty interesting.
And people probably just would also say no because they just hate his guts too. So
yeah,
so
he's so not likable. Like you said, Alyssa,
so.
I rewatching that, like I'll just say, like, there's the one of the, I think, most uncomfortable scenes in 42 seasons is the conversation that he has with Ted in episode 3 about the incident with Gandia. It is skin crawling what he says, and he's like, just tell me nothing happened. He wants that to be the thing, and I'm like, oh my, this guy is sociopathic tendencies. Like, what is happening here? And the way that he talks, it feels very hollow. I don't know. Yeah, I agree.
You want your hero to win in the end. That's not a hero winning in the end. Right?
It's
not
it's
even
just
a villain you can cheer for.
He feels like an AI or something.
He is,
It feels weird. It's very disassociated. I can't really connect with him at all.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like another reason why like I rank this so low and why so many people rank Thailand so low is because of like the Gandia being inappropriately touched by Ted. It's so hard to watch and so difficult to watch, especially how like Survivor, production, and Jeff portrayed everything in the edit and how everyone took Ted's side and then they voted Gandia out. It's like the whole production team, they were trying to play down the situation, trying to cover up. And even Jeff in the reunion show was saying, oh, you know, that's just what happens in Survivor, playing it off as a joke. So that's like really,
They're like,
really
it's like a
difficult to
highlight
watch.
of the season. Like the highlights. I'm like, oh no, this is so
going off on
awkward.
Ryan. This is me.
So
Yeah.
I promise it gets better from here. The bottom hole, it gets better in a little bit.
Oh yeah, give it a couple seasons.
Yeah, not for me.
Okay. The 41 ranked best season of all time, worst season of all time, out of all 42 seasons, with an amazing pre-merge, gets taken down by an unwatchable post-merge. 69 points. I just gotta say nice to that. We have Survivor Island of the Idols. I rank this one 36 out of 42. Flynn ranks it the worst of all time. Rachel 39. Peridiam 37. We have Alyssa ranking it 15 out of 42 seasons. So I'm going to start with you, Alyssa. Ranking this season as a top 15 of all time, I think everyone wants to know your thoughts.
I think if I were to go back and redo the rankings, I would probably do it a little bit lower. I think Island of the Idols had a lot of really good things going for it. I think that like having the idols, having huge versions of Rob and Sandra's heads, like that was really cool. Even if like a little bit narcissistic, but real cool. So I feel like there was a lot of great ideas that could have made into a really great season if they had been done with a little bit less ham-fistedness. So I feel like that is one of the big things. And then I'm sure that the reason why this season often gets ranked really low is because of the situation with Kelly and Dan. And I feel like, to me, obviously, I find that situation horrible. I find it skin crawling. But I feel like when people say like, oh, don't watch this season. Oh, this season is awful. The season is horrible because of what happens between Kelly and Dan. It kind of takes away a lot of the power from what happened afterwards. Because I feel like we're coming into a cultural moment where we are starting to talk about sexual harassment and sexual assault, and we're starting to talk about it more openly. Like Rachel pointed out, like this isn't the first time that someone has accused someone else on Survivor of sexual harassment or sexual assault. And like Survivor All-Stars, Sue Hawk quit because Richard rubbed himself on her, and that wasn't talked about. And I feel like the fact that we have come to a place in our culture where we can talk about this and say like, no, this was awful, this was wrong. This was skin crawling is really important. And so I feel like having that moment where we can talk about it and where it opens a conversation, like I wish it wasn't a conversation that had to be opened, but I'm glad that it's a conversation that we're having instead of one that's being shoved down and shoved back.
Yeah, you put that perfectly. 3 people in our group of Survivor content creators ranked this the worst season of all time. We had Once Upon an Island, Idle Out, and then Flynnmasters. Can you go into a little more detail? Any reasons other than the obvious reason, the Dan situation, why you rank this the worst season of all time?
No, that's literally because, I mean, just to think, kind of like how, me and most people put Chris Underwood as the worst winner, because there's one flaw about him that but there's one flaw about him you can't overlook that 41 other winners can't say. Say what you will about seasons being boring, and heck, there's ugly moments to other season, but the ugliness of this season with the situation, I just feel like I just have to put it last. I just can't overlook that. So yeah, pretty basic. Yeah, I can't overlook it.
Yeah, I would say a cool part about this season is an almost super ironic part in the end is Tommy being able to win the game. It's a boring win, I know, but Tommy being able to win a game without any advantages, without go seeing the Island of the Idols, without seeing Rob and Sandra, without winning any challenges. It's so ironic, so random, and a boring win for Tommy to be able to do that. Peridiam, what are your thoughts on Tommy's winning game?
Yeah, I'm really high on Tommy as a winner. I think he's got one of the single best individual performances for a one-time player. I said he was one of the most underrated recently, and I think it's true. I mean, his win happened recently, so I think over time it'll look better. And he did get his dues-ish when he won, but I think it's the dark cloud over his win, and the season sort of, you don't really think about Tommy, and also he's not, they didn't make him very interesting, in my opinion, especially after the whole thing goes down. I've always appreciated when people don't always win every challenge and find all the idols, especially in modern Survivor. So seeing Tommy also with the fire making, he finessed that really well, convincing Nora to take him after tricking her into thinking one thing and it was the other. And I find that really impressive. And he was sitting next to Dean, who I feel like is almost like the poster child of modern Survivor, idol toys all over the island, where he had 3.5 things with one of them was fake. And he's like, this is my resume. And it's Tommy's yeah, but what does that really mean at the end? What does that really account for? You can't actually break it down and explain your game in a way that is, and he ultimately didn't. And Tommy shut him down. I think he also had one of the best Final Tribals performances. It's really impressive what he's able to do. And he's also a big guy. You just look at him. He's 6'3", 6'4", or whatever, maybe even bigger. And he's got muscles. And he, of all people, is underestimated and overlooked. I don't know. I'm as far as managing how much of a threat you are to the average player, Tommy seems quite like a threat to somebody who'd beat me at the end of the game. And yet he had everyone in his final 2. Everyone wanted him in their final 2. It's just, there's a lot going on there. I'd say if anyone's going to study a modern Survivor winner, look at his, because he's got a lot to learn. You can learn a lot from him.
Yeah, awesome. And then a lot of people regard how the pre-merge of the season, how the season starts off, and that cast, the pre-merge, how they're playing the game, is a super good pre-merge of the season. Rachel, do you agree with this? How was the pre-merge for you?
Yeah, I agree. I think the pre-merge was really awesome, really great for season 39. And then, once you hit the merge and once all of the Kelly stuff comes up with, Elizabeth and Missy, then sort of the merge goes downhill with this season. And I feel like one of the good things about this season is that I really like the cast, especially if Survivor were to do a pre-merge versus post-merge season like Survivor SA just did. I think this season would have a lot of potential returnees if Jeff were to have people pre-season 40 coming back. So it's I really liked, Chelsea, Jason, pre-merge people, but then even post-merge people like Jamal, Karishma, Elaine, Janet, Lauren, Dean, they have a really, really good cast that I think a lot of them would have a lot of really good potential to come back and win a second time out there for a second chance season or a pre-merge versus post-merge season. But yeah, I don't know. I think this season also gets brought down because of the Island of the Idols twist. I thought the twist of having Rob and Sandra back is a little bit bad, sort of dumb here? Like, do you just want people to tune in and watch Survivor because you have those big names of Rob and Sandra here? Maybe if someone hasn't seen Survivor recently, but they watched the old days of Survivor, they'll see Rob and Sandra and be like, hey, let me tune into this again. But I don't know. The lessons that Rob and Sandra were teaching were not equitable, like sometimes harder than others. Like Elizabeth, day one, trying to beat Rob at fire. Obviously, she's going to lose at that compared to someone doing a quiz on Rob's and Sandra's life. Like that is so much easier. So I felt like you had to come up maybe with some different like lessons you were teaching them, made it more equitable there. But it just seems sort of like a gimmick. Hey, come watch Survivor just to see Rob and Sandra.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And it was so inconsistent, which was my problem with it. And I find some other seasons we'll talk about later with all these islands and random twists. Survivor needs to, if we're going to have these islands and we need to have ways to bring advantages into the game, I think we're doing a little better with this new era. But before we got to that point, they were so inconsistent with how we were going about things. Like an example was Survivor Ghost Island, when some days you wouldn't play the game. Well, in this season with Rob and Sandra, some of these challenges were just so inconsistent and so random. And then we had the situation at the very end of the game with Dean, the idol nullifier. Flynnmasters, can you give your thoughts on that idol nullifier at the very end of the game?
Screw Janet. That's all I can say.
Yeah, that's
why. That's a question. Do you think the season's better perceived if Janet like overcomes it all to win the season? Because that's the thing. I mean, just look at these comments. Like, no one gives a crap that Tommy's a good winner. It's just boring.
This one's a good one. Jamal's advantage. That was the worst one.
Yeah, I think the season's definitely received better if you have like an underdog who also, like, the big catalyst of the beginning of the end of the season is at the merge, and Janet was on the wrong side of the vote. But I think morally people would root for her, and they were rooting for her. So for her to get taken out, especially by a flip of a coin, when she probably could win the season, I think you map it out like the what if scenario.
She was the best fire making person there, so I think she does.
So it's like Survivor sometimes gets in its own way, for better or worse, and this was definitely one of the for worse. But people loved this. Is the funny thing, because the nullifier was the thing in David and Goliath, and people loved it.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that episode thinking, I don't really love this, but it doesn't seem to be what the public's thinking, because they're all like, who cares about the Dan guy who got taken out? But I'm like, yeah, but I don't think the advantage itself is very good. And then it comes back 2 seasons later to bite a fan favorite in the butt. It's like, what if that was Christian on the receiving end? It's like, that's kind of like the Janet of the season or something. I don't know. So results based and all that.
And my rapid fire question for Survivor Island of the Idols. Chat, get ready for this one. My question is for you, Alyssa. Survivor Island of the Idols. Could or would we ever see this twist again with other All-Stars? Maybe, I don't know, Tyson and Parvati, or for some example. Would we see this again? Do you want to see it again?
Will we and do I want to are two different questions, Russell. I feel like one of the things, like Jeff has talked about, like, oh, we're not going to bring back returnees from before season 40. So I wonder if that would also kind of hamstring any ability to have a return of Island of the Idols, just because, like, you need idols to do it. And I don't know. I feel like a lot of the big name Survivor people, if Jeff called them up and asked, would be like, sure, I guess. I'm sure that it's great if you're Rob or Sandra, you get paid to have a vacation. So yeah. I guess I personally wouldn't want to see it come back, just because I think one of the most interesting things about Survivor is the way that new players see the game differently. And I think if you're constantly trying to play the game that someone else told you to play rather than play your own game, that can get in your way. So I also would question, like, a lot of the Survivor greats. I think there's a debate whether or not they're the greats, because, like, a lot of them didn't win on their first time. Like, both of the people you mentioned, Tyson and Parvati, didn't win their first time around. So are they really the best Survivor winners? Which I know is like a debate in the community. But if they're coaching first-time players, it does matter whether or not they were able to win their first time in the game, I feel like. So
that's smart.
Yeah.
Realistically, everyone in chat is saying no, but I love in some of these answers we're getting. When he Joe
first
for
boot
All-Stars.
season.
Yeah.
First boot season.
Chicken and Zane. We need Chicken and Zane back.
Yeah, that'd be the best. Okay. Next up, ranked 40th out of 42. with one of the most dominating wins of all time, 82 points, Survivor Redemption Island. I ranked this one personally 31st out of 42. Flynn, 38. Rachel, 42 out of 42. Alyssa, 34. And Peridiam, 42 out of 42. So obviously, I think we need to start with Rachel and Peridiam. We'll start with you, Rachel. Worst season of all time. Why is that?
Yeah, looks like Purdy and I agree here. For me, as the chat has been saying, similar to like Thailand, Pagongings, I find very boring. Like, sure, yes, it's cool to see Rob's dominant strategy, him being able to school everyone else on the season, but this is not a season that I would probably ever rewatch. It is less interesting to rewatch because of the straightforwardness, like versus a season that has a lot of twists and turns. And personally, I'm not really a fan of like the Redemption Island twist in general. I feel like if you're voted out, you should get voted out. You know, sure, it's cool if your fan favorite gets voted out. They have an extra chance to get back into the game. But for me personally, I prefer where it's straightforward Survivor. If you're out, you're out. You don't have that extra level of safety. And you could argue, you know, twists like Redemption Island led to things like Edge of Extinction. So but I would say with Redemption Island, like this is the first iteration. It evolved over time. We see it in South Pacific, and then Ozzy is using Redemption Island, getting himself voted out to use it as a strategy. But I feel like for me, I would prefer the season 27 Blood versus Water Redemption Island more. So I feel like I've rated this really low because of the Pagonging. Very boring just to see Rob dominate, but I can see how people would like this season if you want to see that dominant strategy.
There you go. And Peridiam, yourself, 42 out of 42. Crazy.
So crazy. Oh man, I love the fact that like watching this season live was like the absolute pits of watching Survivor. Waiting a week to watch the same thing happen again and again and again, and there's just no hope. And even like I did slightly enjoy the merge episode and the premiere. I think leading up to Russell's boot, I remember at the time being like, oh my God, Russell's about to get voted out for the first time. Russell's just been crammed down our throats for an entire year of watching him week in and week out, and he's about to lose the game. And that was kind of cool. And that was fascinating to see, even though like I'm 50-50, I'm in and out on Russell. And then Rob, I'm like, you know, he's okay, but right, Russell, right. So like, there you go. Like we're rooting for the other Russell. One day you'll be on there and we'll have you come back to back and you know, crush it. And then we'll rank it in the top 2 seasons. Ultimately, I hate Redemption Island. I hate the concept. I didn't really love the Outcast, but at least it made for better TV. I hate the idea of like removing the reward challenges and then focusing so much. Like, I'm just not huge into challenges, and like 1v1 duels I find to be and it's like the same song and dance every episode. To watch Matt lose in the finals, to watch Andrea get voted out again, to watch Matt get voted out. I can see there's some sort of like a story that's there, like Matt and his religious story. And, you know, I don't know, you could draw parallels in some ways, but I do kind of wonder if you're looking a little too deep into it. It's ultimately like just a reality show at the end of the day. And it's just, I feel like if every season was more like Redemption Island, the show would be much worse, like infinitely worse. And I don't even know if I keep watching, to be honest, because I just, the experience of watching Redemption Island week in and week out was just probably my least favorite experience, other than like the shock of the merge of Island of the Idols. That was the other, like, yeah. It's not very often I have like a horrible viewing experience, but I was also new to Survivor at the time, and I was on cloud 9, like watching Heroes versus Villains. And so I did like Rob a lot, and I liked Russell for the most part. I was really cheering for him, but like, I just was so disappointed. It was the first crushing season for me. Like, it was just so, I was like, wow, Survivor isn't this incredible show sometimes. It's actually like, I really don't care about it that much. And so for me, it's just, I haven't ever shaken that feeling, and it's still dead last to this day.
That's crazy, because I do as well remember watching the season live, and I enjoyed it. Now,
there you go. Hey, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, there you go. I remember going off of Heroes versus Villains. I remember, so again, my first season was Cook Islands. First, became a super fan, fans versus favorites, building into Heroes versus Villains, so close together. And that reunion, seeing Rob versus Russell, I was like, oh, this is crazy. This is the craziest thing ever. They're bringing these two people back, battling it out. Seeing that all happen now, Obviously, looking back, it's not that good of a season, but I think that's why I ranked it 31st out of 42, was just for that reason alone, that nostalgia. I even remember I was on vacation at the time when the show was airing, and I specifically remember going on iTunes, buying that episode so I can watch it while I was still on vacation. So it's just good memories like that, which is the reason I ranked it.
I was so hyped. The first buff I ever bought was Ometepe, and they're like one of the most disappointing tribes. I kind of laugh at that, but I have that orange buff behind me. It's the first one I've ever bought.
It's really cool. We'll go with you next, Flynn. Survivor Redemption Island. What do you think?
I mean, there are like good moments, you could say, you know, as opposed to like Thailand, that I can't literally find anything. You know, the premiere is really fun with like, you know, the Francesco incident with Philip. That's really fun. And then, yeah, like you said, Peridiam, like just seeing Russell go home for the first time and get eliminated after one duel is actually kind of insane, you know, so that's cool. And really, like, I think Matt really does make the season. You know, his 2 blindsides are epic and brutal. And, you know, let's be honest, it's pretty obvious that Rob has the season wrapped up from the beginning. But if there is like one slight hope, that's cool. If there is like one slight hope in someone who could win, you know, I guess you are kind of rooting for Matt. You know, maybe this guy is gonna like challenge his way to the end, or at least get to the finale. You know, the fact that he doesn't even, you know, win that finale duel is so brutal. So I mean, between those little positive moments, you know, I guess that's what keeps us above Thailand for me. But I mean, it was Rob's season. This is literally just a season to give Robert Russell a win. It's just really hard. It doesn't feel like it feels like a waste of a season. It just, let's give one of these $2 million. It's just not fun in retrospect.
I hate the concept of people coming back into the game and getting voted out. Like, it just removes the climax of an episode of Survivor. It's like, I love the finale, the totality of like all of your actions come up at the very end of the episode and they culminate in a vote, and then it just gets so dampened with Redemption Island. I just feel like that's same thing with Edge of Extinction, which I have higher, but yeah.
I'm surprised that you have Edge of Extinction higher, just because I feel like one of the things that makes Redemption Island like at least somewhat redeeming for me, pardon the redeeming redemption, whatever, but is the fact that if you were voted out earlier, you have to win more duels to get back into the game. I feel like the thing about Edge of Extinction, it's like everyone who is voted out more or less gets the same chance to get back into the game, even if you were voted out first versus being voted out 10th. And I feel like, to me, the interesting thing about the Redemption Island mechanic is the fact that if you were voted out first, you have to fight for every single time you stay in the game. And I feel like that is a little bit better than like the Edge or like that kind of mechanic where you get a chance to come back in the game, but it's kind of equal for everyone.
I would agree. I think Edge of Extinction is way worse, and it's way more unfair. Like, you shouldn't be given advantages or an advantage because you got placed worst in the show, like especially on Winners at War and having the fire tokens. Like, you shouldn't be given advantages for being the first boot instead of like Yule right before the merge. He should somehow have the better advantage because he made it further. I agree. I think Redemption Island is definitely more fair. I just still, for me, it was like just the first time it came up was enough. I didn't love it. I think I was a little more in a different headspace with Edge of Extinction at that point, because we're now almost 20 seasons later, and you know, at that point, I was really unhappy. And the fact that it came back for Winners at War with Edge of Extinction, we'll talk about that later, but
yeah,
actually, I don't think we will. Also, to be fair, like Edge of Extinction has a lot of crazy gameplay going on in the middle. You can sort of take it or leave it, whereas Redemption Islands is like, you could just sleep. It's the only season where I've skipped episodes because on a rewatch, because I'm like, I already know exactly what happens. I don't want to watch this again. So there's also that.
Redemption Island is the better mechanic, but Edge of Extinction is the better season.
Outcast Twist, Redemption Island, Edge of Extinction. Rank all 3 of them, Melissa.
Probably Redemption Island, and then Edge of Extinction, and then Outcast Twist.
Interesting, cool. I just gotta say, Idle Doubt's not here, but I've got to give a little shout out to the amazing reunion show moment, Murphy's engagement. He likes to put that in his videos every chance he gets. So gotta love that moment there. That such awkward and cringe-worthy Survivor moment. Gotta love that.
Shut it down.
And thank you, Benjamin Allen. Hope this helps you pass Russell Hanson subscribers. Thank you so much. First ever time that's happened.
Yeah, one earlier.
Rapid fire question. Peridiam. This one's for you. Talked about Rob a little bit. Does this season change for you and your opinions on it? And this for the chat as well. Does this season improve if Rob doesn't win and someone else ends up being the winner?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Easy.
I think it's ridiculous. A fourth-time player is coming back to play against newbies. Even just being a second-time player coming back is an unfair advantage, but in this case, it made the season much less interesting. I like Rob, but I was rooting against him every episode once he took control, and it was just like, maybe that's partially why I don't like it so much. But yeah, for me, I would absolutely have the season higher. I think I would. Maybe I wouldn't, but if he lost, yeah.
Yeah, people are saying yes. Someone's saying Ashley should have won. Honestly,
He probably does win if she gets in the end.
Yeah. Yes. So there you go. Next up, number 39 out of 42 with 86 points. Another season in the dark ages of Survivor with, I would say, lackluster gameplay. Other people would probably say it's improves on Survivor a little bit. We got Nicaragua. I ranked this one 41 out of 42. This is a lot up and down for this one. Flynn ranks it 27th, Rachel 29th, Alyssa 39th, and Peridiam 25. So we'll start with the people who ranked it a little worse and the other people afterwards and see if we can meet anywhere in the middle. Alyssa and I, we both ranked it super low on this season. You ranked it 39th. Why'd you rank it so low, Alyssa?
I mean, I don't remember anything that happened this season. I know that I watched it. Fabio is kind of like an uninspired winner, I feel like. So it's just kind of, it's definitely a season of Survivor.
It happened.
There you go. Yeah, it did happen. It's like pizza, right? Any
Yeah.
season of Survivor. Okay, and then the other direction, we got Flynn, Rachel, and Peridiam. All you guys all ranked it around the same. So I'll start with you, Peridiam. What are your thoughts on Nicaragua?
I think by the same token of Alyssa, it's a season of Survivor that happened. It's wild to think that you had two people quit and they were also in the majority alliance. And I actually have heard depending on how things shook out, maybe even Nianca had a chance to actually win the game, which is bizarre, but not unprecedented with this cast. I love Fabio's winner. He's one of my favorite winners. Not a great strategic winner. I think he's one of the worst, but I love that. You're never going to get a Fabio winning Survivor, probably ever. And you never have since then or before. It's a bizarre season full of wacky characters making weird moves that don't make sense. And I'm here for it because you don't get that very often in Survivor. It's usually you get Redemption Island where you get a couple of really good players and those players get voted out in the middle of the season. And then you're left with what? And the hero of the story, at least, is Fabio, and he wins. He goes on an immunity run, so it kind of has that too. I always look forward to the ending of the season, which I would much rather have that than looking forward to the first 3 episodes with Russell getting voted out. So I have Nicaragua higher. Also, there's just a lot of weird people Holly sinking Dan's shoes. Dan Lembo himself is a character. Tyrone. Yeah. You've got Jane versus Marty. Marty's a chess grandmaster and he's not. And he uses a tennis player. I don't know. I've always had a soft spot, even though it's in the middle of my rankings.
What about you, Flynn?
Yeah, so I don't know if you, Rachel and Peridiam, agree with me. While there's again not many big blind sides, there are forgivable characters. There's of course really bad moments with the quit and the I can't even think. Oh my god, the Medallion of Power, right? I almost forgot what it was called. That's how forgettable it is, right? So there are. I can see Alyssa probably doesn't remember. There are some bad moments, but I think the flow of the season is actually pretty decent. You just go through. We start off with
Jimmy T.
With the worst episode ever. The worst player of all time in Wendy Joe, Jimmy T and the 2 Jimmys in the pre-merge, Jimmy T's downfall is amazing. That that swap. Yes, you have forgettable boots like Tyrone and Yves, but you have Marty somehow making the merge. He hangs on to his idol and he doesn't go home and then he gives his idol a stash just to make the merge. That's hilarious. And again, when the merge comes, yes, they're not big blind sides. They're blind sides, but they're pretty foreshown. But still, the big players, Elena, Marty, and Brenda go out as they're the biggest characters of the pre-merge. And like you said, Peridiam, they go out in the merge. It's kind of crazy. And I don't hate the quit as much as other people because I think it's pretty funny that, Nianca, what'd I do?
He's mad that you said
Tyrone.
Vote him out. Vote him out.
I think it's pretty funny that Nianca had a legit chance of winning. with an idol in her pocket, and she quit the game. That's hilarious. And I've always felt for Kelly because production found some hot 20-year-old chick and made her suffer out there in Nicaragua. So of course she was literally miserable for 28 days. And then, the final 7, we saw Fabio, like you say, you want to compare winners. While Benry was going after Fabio laid back, and boom, he survived over Benry in the final 7. And lo and behold, Fabio wins those final 3 immunities to get to the end. So really got to see the lay low strategy pay off there. Jane blowing up in the final 6. Holly's amazing run, going from like, what do you do? What she do with Dan's shoes? She like threw him in the ocean or something.
Put sand in them and put them in the ocean.
And then she became this motherly figure and a great fallen angel. Had amazing heroic turns. So, I think the general flow of this season, while there's no amazing great points and certainly some forgettable characters, bad gameplay, the general flow is really fun. I can't put it too much higher than this, but I obviously enjoy it more than most people.
And then Rachel, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Peridiam regarding Fabio. I think he has some really unique gameplay, like that attractive surfer bro pretending to be dumber than they really are. And then I feel like we see this archetype coming up nowadays, and people haven't been able to really replicate that kind of success of pretending to be like a hot dumb person, which it's really interesting, especially for Fabio. Like, that's not even his real name. Everyone's still calling him Fabio over his real name, So many years later, I think it would have been really interesting to see him come back for Winners at War, especially being the youngest winner, 21 years old. He's like in his 30s now. That would be really fascinating to see him come back, especially to see that kind of different gameplay there. And like with the Medallion of Power, I feel like that really brings down this season. It's sort of useless, I feel like Espada didn't use it and they lost the challenge. They didn't use it and then they won the challenge. LaFleur didn't use it and they won, and then they used it and they also won. So it's sort of like a mixed bag. It was there. This is sort of like a production tried something season. They had those idle clues that weren't just clues, but they were rebus puzzles, which I thought was funny looking back at it now, because 41 had those rebus puzzles and then they just disappeared in season 42. Like, Jeff is not showing this game inside the game anymore. So I'm personally not really a fan of like having advantages in immunity challenges like that, especially if the advantages are like super OP. Oh, for the final immunity challenge or final 5, you're going to have an OP advantage. That feels really, really unfair. So if you have advantages at challenges, they can't be so great that they basically allow the person holding the advantage to win that challenge. So they need to be like, an advantage, but not too great that it helps them win.
Yeah, I fully agree. And then that was funny you talked about Fabio and Winners at War, because that is the rapid fire question of the season. Chat, get ready for this one. This one's for you, Flynn. How would Fabio do in Winners at War? Boom. Go.
Oh, I think he does really good. I really do think that. Again, that perfect, maybe not really good, but he would have been like, obviously probably one of the younger ones, the more physically fit, which should be fair, could have made him a threat. But again, he was part of that new school group. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I don't know if Fabio does good with a bunch of winners, but I mean, maybe he like kind of does his strategy, kind of floats along, and who knows how he does from there. He probably has like no chance of winning, but I'd be interested to see. He's one of the people I was so surprised we didn't see, because again, I feel like with production really needed that younger athletic guy, at least in comparison.
He'd be very underrated. Could be a GOAT brought to the end, but doubt the jury respects his game. I don't know. I feel like he could be underrated and kind of go through, because season 21's now season 40, pretty old, right? You kind of forget about that. Fabio being 21 at the time of filming of Survivor Nicaragua, going into Winners at War, that'd be so interesting to see if he would change his gameplay or still be the dumb surfer dude. Be really cool.
Exactly. He's sort of like gone off the grid. Like, you don't really see much of him being posted on Reddit. Is like, has kids now, I think. So it would have been cool to like see that, oh, I'm young, I don't really have any like responsibilities, surfer bro archetype, to now, oh, I have a family, I have kids. 10 years later, let me play Survivor again. And I feel like with Survivor Nicaragua, you got to shout out Chase Rice. I'm a country music fan, so it's just so funny. Oh, he started here on Survivor, and then he went on like The Bachelor to be like a singer for a date, and there's a whole meme about that. So it's like Chase Rice is everywhere in this reality TV world, which I think is funny.
I don't follow him too much, but I'm pretty sure if it's ever brought up in interviews or anything, he really like tries to ignore Survivor as much as he can. It's really funny.
Yeah.
Okay, number 38. with 120 points. We're getting up there. Remember, Survivor Thailand, we started with 47 points, and we're already at 120 points. 38th out of 42 seasons. Be ready for tons of Dark Age seasons today with our next pick, Survivor One World. I ranked this one 34 out of 42. Flynn, 39. Rachel, 27th. Alyssa, 33. And Peridiam, 41st. So we'll start with Flynn and Peridiam, super, super low. Peridiam, the second worst season of all time. Why?
I mean, it shouldn't be too much of a shocker. I ranked Redemption Island as the worst, and I guess this season's better because it doesn't have Redemption Island. But man, it's a pagonging. It's Kim playing an incredibly perfect game, like cookie cutter. She does exactly what needs to be done, but I think she does it even better than Rob. It's her first time playing. The cast is, I sort of go back and forth on the debate if the cast is like weak or if Kim's just so good that she makes everyone look bad. But ultimately, like, the men are dumb, and that's kind of fun on some level. It's kind of funny. It's entertaining in a way how bad they are. But like, it's just no competition. And the moment Kim talks, it's like, that's what happens. And that sort of, for me, was the narrative of watching it week in and week out, was like, the moment Kim popped up, whatever she said, I was like, that's what's happening. And it happened every single time. And I love that for her, but it's also like entertaining. It gets a little boring after a while. You're watching the same thing happen again, a pagonging. It does have some upsides more than Redemption Island. I do have a sizable gap between my least favorite and my second least favorite, at least, just because you've got like Kat, who's just a character and she's ridiculous. Like BLT, there's bacon on my BLT. What? Or the whole, like, given the whole, blindsided, she gets blindsided while she's talking about getting blindsided. She's a character. Troyzan makes for a okay underdog-ish. Yeah, he was okay to root for, I guess, for a minute. But ultimately, yeah, it's just, there's not a lot else for me to love.
You rank this one super low as well, Flynn. Are you pretty similar with Peridiam in that sense, or different reasons?
And one thing you didn't mention was all the ugliness this season too, with the Lucina, and they again. It doesn't. I mean, I don't know. And Chat, you can answer this. Do you like the fact that Colton got evacuated? Because I would have rather seen him like get a big blindside. Like that could have been Kim's amazing move, like a huge blindside in Colton.
That's so not satisfying when Colton gets just medevaced. It's like,
exactly right.
He's such a pre-merge villain. He has to get his comeuppance.
Yeah,
and
exactly. That's what I'm rooting for.
What's that?
Nothing happens, and then Alicia, makes it to Final Five after that. One thing I will say, the one thing that keeps the season above like the Thailands and Island Hours world, I am probably like the biggest Troyzan fan you'll ever meet. I just love the dude.
Did you know Troyzan was on Game Changers?
Yeah, I know. I know he's a meme at this point. But
Wait,
man,
what?
I didn't know that.
He came back.
And just in general, I think that like the beginning of the merge is pretty fun. For whatever reason, the guy just turned on Jonas for no reason. Then you have Mike's blindside. And then, of course, Troyzan playing the idol, but they switched the votes to Jay at the last second. That's fun. And then that final 9 episodes when I really just fell in love with Troyzan. Up until Tony and Winners at War, that was like the most conventional as anyone ever had an episode. And he's just, I'm with them. I'm the same thing. I'm just begging him, please, something happen. Take out Kim. He wins immunity. This is my island. I instantly fell in love with him right there. Final 8, again, I'm just rooting for somehow survive to the final 7, final 6, keep going on. So I'm huge on Troyzan more than most people. And like literally him alone is what probably keeps this above Thailand for me.
Alyssa, what's the most iconic moment of the season? Is there any?
I mean, Kim winning. I feel like this season was just like such a fever dream because I kept waiting for someone to realize that Kim was playing them all like puppets. And then the fact that it never happened, I feel like if someone had turned on Kim, that would have been the most iconic moment of the season, but it didn't happen. So I feel like it's difficult to say there's an iconic moment of the season because like the iconic moment I expected just never came to be. So
this is my island. That's so iconic to me.
Yeah, that's probably it.
That's why I fell in love with Troyzan.
I
hope I'm like him when I'm 50. I hope I'm like him when I'm 50.
So,
and Rachel, how do you feel about Kim as a winner overall?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like a lot of people, and myself included, include Kim in like that top echelon of Survivor winners here. I feel like there's a little bit of an echo, but Yeah, I feel like she's in the top tier. Very glad that she was brought back for Winners at War. Her dominant game here is so interesting because I feel like we haven't really seen that edit for a woman winner thus far. And I feel like she inspired a lot of like young women to want to play the show and to play a similar kind of cutthroat game as Kim. So I think that's really great. And I feel like for me, this season gets sort of a bump up in the rankings because there are so many returning players. So like Kat, Colton, Monica, Troy Zan coming back, Brad via Monica coming back, and then Kim on Winners at War. I feel like it would have been, if you have friends that maybe want to watch Survivor and they want to learn some of the like history, maybe you tell them to watch One World so they meet all of these characters before they watch some of these returnee players season. It's because there are so many returnees from this season. And I think the one sad thing is that Sabrina didn't get to come back for second chance. I really wish she had that. Yeah, I wish she had that, like got enough votes to come back for second chance because she had so much potential.
Or put her on Game Changers.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, with the new BIPOC, where she has a good chance for the next second chance.
Yeah,
If
I
they
agree.
decide to go far back. She's pretty far back now, but yeah, maybe.
How did Colton convince everyone on the men's tribe to give up immunity?
How did we forget about that? Oh my god, how did we forget about that?
I've rewatched that scene a bunch of times for a recent video I made for Survivor, and I was like, the conversations they have
Like, just say no.
Befuddling. They are like bum puzzling, as Jay said. He's just like, and Jonas is like, I guess we just got to do it.
Yeah, that's the
like,
thing. They don't know what else to do.
Why? They never counter it. He just says, this is what we got to do. And they're like, okay, Colton's doing, he made this, he called the shot. We're going to do that. Does
Like,
anyone
poor Bill,
disagree? And they're just like, I don't understand why we're doing this. And it's like, you're going next after Bill.
Bless Bill's heart, but the poor guy like had a fight with Colton like 20 minutes beforehand, and he agrees to go to tribal. That poor guy.
Yeah, for all of the negatives around Colton and all of his comments towards his other castmates, like Colton was running the tribe before he got taken out. So it's like, it's such a juxtaposition, like, oh, this like ugly person in personality is actually running things and everyone is listening to him, even though he's like being super rude and racist to his teammates. It's so weird.
Yeah. Here's our rapid fire question of Survivor One World. This is for you, Rachel. And chat, make sure you get going in the chat down below. Obviously this season we don't like it too much, but would you like to see the One World twist again?
Ooh, splitting up by gender and on the same beach?
Same beach. It doesn't have to be splitting up by gender, but same beach.
I would say no. I feel like for Survivor, I'm more like, I want, like we talked about before, people get voted out when they get voted out. They don't get a second chance to come back. I like having two beaches where people are separated and you don't get to like canoodle with the other people like in the pre-merge, you know? Colton is hanging out with the women, talking to them a lot and like giving them information and stuff. And so I think it's interesting when they are separated, and then maybe we'll see a tribe swap again coming up in the future. And then we can see that kind of strategy. But I don't think if everyone is on the same beach and then you're voting people out, it's a lot of like cross-pollination that I wouldn't be a fan of.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of like if you had like Big Brother where they're all playing individually, but they're all in the same area, which is funny because Big Brother right now, probably not too many Big Brother fans in the audience, but they just did a twist that was borrowed from Survivor where they took the cast and they split them into two individual groups of 5 at the final 10. And I thought that was an interesting take. And I thought like watching One World kind of reminded me of like having 20 players or 18 players living on one beach. It's like how Big Brother operates, except they're technically divided. And yeah, it's an interesting little twist. I could see them like never doing it again, but I wouldn't be too bothered, I guess.
I would like to see it again, but I understand why they split it up, men versus women, because it would get confusing, everyone living on one beach and then needing to figure out who's in which alliance. If they can figure out a way how to make the tribes men and women together and still living on the same beach, I would like to see it again, but I don't know if realistically you can do that.
Yeah.
Number 37. We're moving along, guys. This one has 131 points. And just a little heads up, the next 3 seasons are all separated by 7 points. So really close this next 3. It could have gone anyway. In my opinion, it's the worst season of all time. So anyone a fan of my channel will know what season I'm about to say. 131 points. We have Survivor Fiji. I ranked it 42 out of 42. Flynn, 36 out of 42. Rachel, 35. Alyssa, 25. And Peridiam, 28. I'll start with this one, I guess, just because I'm the person that ranked it the worst out of everyone. The reason I don't like this season at all, and it ruins it for me, I understand the post-merge gets interesting, and I do like moments of the post-merge, but it's that pre-merge and the haves versus have-not twist, especially, which right there makes it the worst season of all time for me. If they didn't do that twist, it would be much higher, probably in an average season, whatever. But that haves versus have-not twist, having one tribe suffer for the entire time. I'm not out here watching Survivor to see people just lay there dead for the entire season. I want to see them actually even fishing, living the camp life, or strategizing in the newer seasons. The haves versus have-not twist did not land for me at all, and that's why I have it ranked the worst. We'll flip it around the other way now, though. Why people ranked it a little bit better. Alyssa, 25 out of 42.
I ranked this so high partially because Earl as a winner is, I think, one of the most underrated winners of all time, because he was the first person to win a unanimous jury vote, and I feel like that has to mean something. And I feel like if you give Thailand credit because Brian was a dominant winner, you have to give Earl credit because even though he didn't dominate the game in the way that Kim did or Brian did to a lesser extent, he still dominated the jury vote and was the first person to do it. And I also feel like I agree, by the way, that the haves versus have-nots twist sucks. But I feel like it also led to some interesting moments. And I feel like the whole conversation between Yao-Man and Dreams about the car and the immunity, that was I think a really cool, iconic Survivor moment, Survivor arc, you could say. So I think it had a lot more going for it than some of these other seasons.
Yeah, Peridiam, you as well ranked this one 28th out of 42.
Yeah. I recently rewatched this one, other than Thailand, and I came away mostly liking it. I mean, I have it in the bottom half, but I do think the beginning, the first half is a little bit messy and not as particularly fascinating as the second half. And that's unfortunate because a lot of these seasons, they tend to get a little confusing. And not only do they start on the same beach, but then they break up into multiple tribes through a tribe pick'em. And it is a little disorienting to pay attention to it and figure out why things are happening. I found the storytelling to be complicated and a little difficult to follow going up to the merge. It starts to all of a sudden make sense at the merge, but that's really tough for me when it's even I'm diving into the behind the scenes stuff and I'm still having difficulty exactly figuring out where everyone goes and why they're going where they're going. I like to jump into the whys of it, and I don't really understand a lot of Fiji's editing. And there's but part of me is also I like Earl as a winner. I actually think Dreams is very underrated. Paying attention to his game in my rewatch, he's actually coming away as one of the more underrated players I think in the history of the show if you really pay attention to what he does. Yao-Man sums him up best by saying he has a lot of potential. He's just not very disciplined when it comes to explaining what he's doing. Whereas Earl is the exact opposite. Earl is very intellectual and he's very able to just, he can do everything deliberately and he can talk about it, and he's Earl. The beginning of the season I think is also maybe one of the, if not the most interesting beginnings in my opinion. Because if you don't know what happens, you'll never know because it's literally not on the episode. But the tribes devolve into two massive factions between the builders and the explorers. And if you don't know anything about this, you should Google it. It sets up the entire pre-merge, and it's a really interesting game. And it's like not on this show at all, which is probably unfair to me to like give points to the season, but I just found it so compelling to pay attention to that, because the elimination starts to make sense when you pay attention to like the actual. It was so complicated, the producers couldn't even like show it because they had them all. It was one world with the Fiji. They were all on the same beach for like a day, and they created this really complicated net of alliances, and then it devolved from there. And then you had Sylvia, who got to pick the tribes because of a quitter, because somebody quit like the day before, which is very weird. Ultimately, yeah, it's toward the bottom, but yeah, there's more good to it than I think Russell, you'll give it credit for.
Oh
personally.
no. This was obviously the last time we'd see the infamous car challenge. Flynn, do you miss the car challenge? Should we bring it back? Are we missing anything with it? And especially in this case, talk about that whole car situation with Yao Man and Dreams.
Yeah, so I'm glad I get to talk about this. So for those of you who don't know about the car incident, who hate, and especially if you like really hate Dreams for this, so apparently everyone knew Dreams' situation, right? And they knew the car challenge was coming, right? So everyone agreed, no matter what happens, let's give Dreams the car. But what Yao Man did, he turned this around. He went away from what everyone said. Instead of just giving Dreams the car, like everyone promised, he turned this into a deal, And again, like Dreams is literally a homeless guy, you know what I mean? That's like giving a fat kid candy, you know what I mean? He's not going to think right in the moment. Of course he's going to take that deal. So yeah, I mean, it was a pretty villainous act by Yao Man. And, he even himself thought he was going to be portrayed as the villain of the season, for putting in Dreams in such a bad situation. So for that moment, that's why it's sad what happened to Yao, but I don't like despise Dreams or despise that moment like most people do. In fact, it made for compelling television. And, just Fiji in general, like there are some big time moments this season. The first ever safe vote, the first ever idol play. But man, I know I'm going off topic here, but man, that cast is what do you guys think, chat? And for you guys, this just may be the worst cast in Survivor history, other than Yao Man. I mean, because even the big time players, you have like your forgettable Lilianas and Ritas of the world mixed with like Rocky and Alex. And I mean, Alex and Mookie just charge Yao Man and blackmail him for the idol. It's so brutal to watch. So
yeah, I feel like it's like the Earl and Yao show mostly, and because they're very likable and they're good players, they tend to carry it, especially toward the end.
but even Earl, like he's not the most interesting TV in the world, and he's like
No, he's not the most interesting. I will say though about the car thing, I listened to this because I was diving deeper. All of them actually had planned to create a deal with Dreams, not just Yao. They all planned to, so they were all going to do it. But I never want to mention that. But I have an interview clip of Earl talking about this. I thought it was really interesting because everyone always says like Yao Man is the villain in that situation. I'm like, they're actually all the villains in the situation, believe it or not.
See,
Like,
I always thought
crazy.
like everyone just agreed to give Dreams the car no matter what. I didn't know they actually.
Oh no. Yeah, there's I have an interview from like 10 years ago with like Survivor Oz, and Earl's like, yeah, we all were gonna do it. I just
They're
wouldn't
all
have done.
ruthless.
I wouldn't have done it how Yao did it. Like he did it in the moment. I would have like won the car and then done it later when I needed to. And I'm like, oh okay. So they're all of them.
ruthless.
They were all ruthless. All of them. They just all of a sudden lambasted Yao because he decided to do it on the spot without thinking too hard about it. But I mean, still, it's they all go down with that ship. So,
Yeah, and you hit it right there. Yao, I have my notes. The best thing, one of the only good things about the season was Yao Man and Earl, that relationship, that dynamic. One thing we haven't really touched on here is the Four Horsemen Alliance. Rachel, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I feel like, this season is ranked sort of low, but one of the highlights would be that the merge after the merge is a little bit more interesting. Like with the Four Horsemen Alliance going up against the Yao Man and Earl group, like you have some friction there, and then the Four Horsemen get completely obliterated. So I think it's interesting to see that dynamic of people flipping on their alliance, which it's a lesser version this season where we nowadays have trust clusters happening where people are flipping every single episode and going different ways. But yeah, I just think the haves versus have-nots for this season sort of brings it down a lot. Especially, I think it was interesting that Gary was the only person that actually applied to be on the show. Everyone else was recruited. So it was interesting to see, if there's a bunch of people who have never played the show, like Earl and Yao Man, they can learn the show and be really good at it. But then you get all of the flops on the season that have never seen it, and then they're just a flop. So I think that's an interesting social dynamic there to look at.
Awesome, yeah. And then the rapid fire question here. Chat, get ready. And Alyssa, get ready. Yao Man obviously returned. Any other players here? Pick up one player you'd want to see return for a future season. Only thing is you can't pick Earl.
Oh man. I was so ready. I was going to say Earl. I mean, I guess I feel like the answer has to be Dreams because, or I guess maybe it doesn't have to be Dreams. I don't know. Like my knee-jerk reaction is Dreams, just because Dreams, I feel like, other than Earl and Yao, is one of the only characters that I would say is like memorable and or notable. But I feel like the fact that like I'm not sure the Dreams would do well if he came back a second time, but I would still like to see him a second time, I guess.
Yeah,
because like we said, this was kind of like the Earl and Yao show. Obviously, Yao already came back, and if I can't pick Earl, so
yeah, boom. Number 36 with 132 points. Now we got to remember Survivor Fiji had 131 points, so this next season beat it out by a single point. Another season here. A weird time for Survivor because I think everyone was expecting maybe an all-star season to come. We have 132 points, Survivor Worlds apart, obviously the 30th season of Survivor. I was hoping for an all-star season at that point. I ranked it 37. Flynn ranked it 37. Rachel 30. Alyssa 28. And Peridiam 33. Flynn and I ranked it pretty low. Flynn, talk about that a little bit. You ranked the season 37 out of 42.
Yeah, just too many ugly moments. I mean, I get there's some good tribals this season. I'll give it that, but just too many ugliness. And the big thing, because I think this season really revolves how you view Mike. You know, if you're really into his story, whatever. The big thing for me, I just could not get invested into his underdog run because to me it was pretty obvious from day one he was going to win. So that's like double whammy, right? When you hate the cast and you don't even like care about the winners, you know, the hero win, overcome it all. That's like a double whammy when you don't care about either one. So between the ugliness and, you know, just not getting invested into Mike's win, which again was like the big positive for most people, I feel, you know, just not a lot of good stuff coming from the season. It's hard to overlook the good when there's all that bad.
One of the good is obviously the rise of Mike and being able to come through with the win in the end. Peridiam, how do you rank Mike as a winner? Do you respect that win? Do you like that kind of win compared to maybe idling your way to the end or using alliances instead of challenges?
I definitely prefer it to idling. I find like winning a challenge at least requires a little bit more skill than like just going on a treasure hunt and getting lucky and following the cameras. Yeah, I mean, I looked into Mike's game a little more. I did appreciate it more when I dived into it a couple months ago. And I said he's pretty underrated. I think a lot of people overlook him just because he wins challenges after challenges and his social game goes down the gutter with his auction at the auction. And I did once upon a time say that was the worst move a winner's ever made. And the first video I ever made 5 years ago. And it may still be like results based because it does put him on such a deficit that he has to literally be immune until the final 3 from the final 9 or whatever it was. That's pretty bad. I find it very unique that he is the only winner to really win that many challenges, and he had to. Whereas I don't think that you could say that for Colby, who almost won, or Tom, who won 5 challenges. Certainly Terry Dietz almost did that, came up short. So I find that really interesting. He's like a very unique, one-of-a-kind winner. It's not often you see winners win, and they have to win the entire way. People always talk about getting out the physical threats, and those guys never win. They just don't. They lose. They get voted out at some point. You know, Joe Anglin was even on that season, and he's kind of notorious for that. He doesn't change his strategy. And Mike did it, and he's really the only one to do that. So I have some respect for it. I think more than maybe the average superfan does, but I still don't have him very high in my overall winner rankings, but maybe higher than the average person.
Obviously, something a lot of these seasons that we've talked about in today's video have in common is like a lot of dark moments outside the game, a lot of moments that are just are uncomfortable to watch for this reality TV kind of thing. And we have a lot of bullying, I guess, of Shirin that go on a couple times from a couple different players. Rachel, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think a lot like this season is brought down for me because of all of that ugly stuff. Like watching Dan and Will specifically, their treatment of Shireen is very hard to watch, and they made it way too personal than they needed to have those family comments about Shireen and like nobody loves you. Like that is not something that I think you should bring into Survivor. There's definitely that moral line I think they crossed there where sure you can say, yeah, you suck at the game, we're going to vote you out. That is sort of mean, but it's not crossing that line of like, oh, you suck as a person. Nobody in your life loves you. Nobody likes you actually. So I think that is something that really brings down this season. And then also, like you all are saying, Mike winning 5 out of the last 6 immunity challenges and then having his idol so he's safe for that time he wasn't safe. So it's like, it's sort of, sure, yes, it's a great dominant winning game and you're winning all these challenges, but as a viewer, it's hard not fun to watch, because if someone is always safe, you can never vote them out and they can just get to the end like that. When you have a sort of predictable winner like that, it's more interesting when they can go up for elimination and they're not winning every single challenge. Where I feel like Mike's win here is sort of similar to Ben's win, but I think I would prefer Worlds Apart over HHH, where Ben was so dominant finding all of these idols. But I don't know. I think I would like to see Mike over Ben coming back for Winners at War. I think that would have been interesting.
Now I'm there.
Obviously, we see this done a couple different ways from Survivor. Brain, Brawn, Beauty. We got Worlds Apart, white collar, blue collar, no collar. We got Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers. Alyssa, how do you feel about the twist or the theme of this season?
I feel like it would be better if they had given us more definition of what no collar was, just because I feel like they kind of shoved everyone who wasn't one of the other two into no collar. And I feel like one of the problems that I have with these themed seasons as a whole is that sometimes people vote to the theme and not necessarily to the game. And I feel like that happened more with some of the other ones, like Brain, Brawn, Beauty, and the Brawn tribe voting out the one skinny person. But I don't know. I feel like at the end of the day, the theme didn't seem to matter as much in this season. But I in general, I don't tend to like themed seasons, so I'm kind of biased talking about it. So
Yeah, and one of my favorite parts, and I feel like everyone in the community or a lot of people on chat definitely agree, is one of the highlights of seasons that we'll probably never see again, is the auction. There's a lot of interesting things that happen this auction that make it probably go away. We have the meta game getting broken with Shirin talking about the letters from home. The minimum bid is what everyone gets to pay for that $20. And then we have Mike and a couple other people saving their money to hopefully get an advantage later. And then everyone promising each other, no, let's just do the $20 for that letter, only to not doing it after. That's kind of what hurts, in my opinion, Mike's game a little bit, that back and forth. That it's some really messy gameplay he does there. Flynn, do you think we'll ever see the auction back?
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I do.
I think they should. It's such an.
They should, right?
I know.
Easy fix.
I think the Shireen thing is it's so overblown. It's not that hard to change the auction format and either not have advantages or whatever. I think it just doesn't appeal to Jeff's current MO of how he wants Survivor to be, which is why he doesn't bother. He's not as interested in watching people eat food. That's long gone.
Yeah, I think that I was just gonna say that. I don't think production realizes just how much we fans love the auction.
Yeah,
I love watching people eat food. Mukbangs are so popular. People love watching people eat big meals, stuff maybe you don't buy usually all the time. I feel like an amazing way to fix it, just say up front, hey, there's no advantages. This is literally just, okay, you can get good food, or maybe it's a covered item and you could get really bad food, or maybe it's a covered item and you get really good food. I feel like when I'm watching this kind of TV, I love to live vicariously through these people, watching their reactions, their happiness when it's an awesome food item, their sadness when it's a crappy food item. So it's just say there's no advantages. Don't save your money. You can't rig the auction. Just give them fun stuff or bad stuff.
If I was a Survivor player, I would definitely not believe Jeff Probst if he was don't worry, guys, there's no advantages. So I feel like Survivor South Africa did something kind of interesting this season where they had an individual challenge that had food rewards, and it was which order you shot a target in determined which food prize you got, or which prize you got, because not all of them were food. So I feel like there's ways to do the auction or something auction-esque without even having the money aspect. So
also they're starving the players so much, you would think the auction would be perfect. They're really leaning into how hard they're making it. You would think that if you could go and have a funny moment with them buying a grilled cheese sandwich, why not? It's probably more interesting than watching them go and jump over a hurdle and then put together a puzzle. I don't know. It's the same outcome at the end of the day, but maybe it's a little more entertaining.
I feel like one of the most like entertaining Survivor auction moments was when someone paid to lick the cake off of someone else's hands, and like that would be perfect for Jeff's whole thing of like, oh, I want to prove just how hard it is, how much they're starving. You would pay $50 just to lick the cake off someone. Like, he would love that. So yeah.
Also, Jeff hyped this season up so much in the
yeah.
preseason.
Oh, forgot about that.
That really set the stakes way too high for what we got. It was way too high.
And then he kind of stopped doing that.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
the thing.
insane.
He stopped after that.
He stopped after this. This was the worst it's ever. Like Jeff, for me, like the first 10 seasons that I got into this show, he just every season was like, this is gonna like set the new standard. This is the best season ever, and then it wasn't. Yeah.
Rapid fire question, chat. Get ready for this. This one's for you, Peridiam. Close your eyes. Imagine this. You get to play Survivor. You're out there. Would you ever make someone do dishes on their birthday? Go.
Oh, in a heartbeat.
Oh,
And if
okay.
it's Rodney, I'd make him do it every day of the week. You kidding me? Suffering Rodney is best Rodney. Like, you can't not have Rodney do his dishes, birthday or not.
Okay, good. A little joke one there, guys. Thank you for that. And next up, we got a little bit of a break here. Survivor buff giveaway. Woo!
Woo!
Share screen. Share screen. Window. So this is how it works here. Let me get rid of that. Put us on the bottom. So I'm going to put a little word here, a little phrase in. You have to do hashtag with that phrase. And then you get entered in chat to win the buff. A little later in the video, what's going to happen is we'll actually spin the wheel and it'll announce a winner of the giveaway. And if you're smart, you think, oh, I'm going to spam the chat so much. Nah, that doesn't work. This system, it only counts one comment per person. So please don't spam the chat. Don't be annoying like that. Before we get started, we have a couple different buffs to choose from. I'm going to let my co-host pick which buff we're going to be giving away today.
Oh, no.
We got Green Survivor 42, the Merge Survivor 42, the Taku buff, and then the Merge of Survivor 41. So Flynn, what buff are we giving away today?
Oh, man. I'm always a fan. Ooh, that's tough. Probably the Taku one.
Taku. Okay, so the winner of today's buff
the
giveaway
winner,
will be
so
getting this
must
Taku
be
buff. And what you need to do is hashtag buff. Start collecting comments. So you guys in the chat, comment hashtag buff. You'll start be getting entered in, and later in the podcast, we'll be announcing the winner. There we go. Already 2 entries. So keep that going.
I think everyone agrees with me. I'm glad I made the right choice.
Remove that. Boom. Keep going.
Like that orange.
Now on to season number 35. Another season here with 138 points. Again, these were 3 seasons in a row that had pretty close points here. I would argue, and a lot of people would argue, the most forgettable Survivor season of all time. We have, Survivor Guatemala. Pretend like you didn't see that. I ranked it 32 out of 42. Flynn 31, Rachel 36, Alyssa 26, and Peridiam 17. So we got a big disparity here for this one. I would say we'll start with you, Peridiam, 17 out of 42. Obviously a forgettable season of Survivor. What are your thoughts?
Obviously.
Yeah,
it was so bad. I just forgot to put it so low.
Rank it, just put it in the middle.
I just forgot it was on the list, and all of a sudden there it was. I like Guatemala. It's a cast full of wacky characters. It kind of has like Fiji upside, where the pre-merge is a little bit difficult to pay attention to with this tribe swap, but I don't think it's as hard. And I love that like the theme of the season is like you can't have your cake and eat it too. And if you watch the season with that theme in mind, you're going to be able to notice that like the Axis of Evil Alliance just have their comeuppance. I think the one major downside is, as much as I do like Danny and I praise her game, she doesn't give anything, and she's likable, she's positive, she's this, pet little underdog here and there when she pops up, but her hiding her strategy and not doing too much like flashy or engaging for the TV does sort of bring it down. If she was a little bit more, she popped more on camera, I think I'd have it even higher. But I enjoyed the characters. I think Judd is one of the most absurd, maybe the most absurd person to ever be on Survivor. He's wild. Jamie versus Bobby John is a rivalry that is so difficult to understand, and it's just testosterone overload, probably. Then you've got Gary Hogaboom. How could you forget Gary? Like the first guy to find the idol. Judd is like
Landscaper.
It's definitely not on. He says it's definitely on the ground or something. Whatever he says, it's definitely on the ground. And I'm like, oh my god, it's like so unintentionally funny. Lydia pancake dance, like Lydia's incredible. You know, another major negative I would say is there's like no diversity in the cast at all. It's like the whitest cast in the history of Survivor. That doesn't help. Certainly doesn't age very well in that regard. But overall, I just enjoyed like the step by step. The pre-merge is pretty fun if pay attention to Danny and what she does. There's a lot going on there. We have a magician's assistant. Where did that come from?
Obviously, the first time we would do the captain season of Survivor, it would come back a bunch of times later on. Flynn, captain season of Survivor. In this incarnation of it, the very first time we see it, Bobby John versus Steph. Do you like that we did this, especially coming after Survivor Palau, or did it need it? I like seeing Steph again, but obviously this is a different version of Steph. What are your thoughts?
I mean, Survivor obviously just want to bring Steph back. And fun fact, it was apparently supposed to be, I think they're always going to do this. It was supposed to be do the Palau twist. The first two people got booted right away. We're going to come back. But, Steph was, poor Wanda and Jonathan. Steph was just so popular. It was an easy excuse to bring them back. And it's kind of funny. You have like Stephanie's big character, but also the other first captain in history is Bobby John. I always kind of find that interesting. Like talk about a random, big time first captain in Survivor. So, I mean, I'm glad they got a second chance. They never really had a chance on, the original season. So that's cool. And yeah, just seeing Steph, come back and, be a pretty much different person, finally be in control. Seeing those two, get their wins for the first time. Bobby John makes the jury this time. Well, fun fact, I think he's the most average player in Survivor history. He came in 10th in Palau out of 20 and came in 9th in Guatemala out of 18. So that's just fun. I'm glad, they're two players, first ever time we did this. It was cool. I don't mind it.
And of course, a lot of firsts for a really forgettable season. It's really confusing in that sense. First time the hidden immunity idols come. We got to talk about that a little bit. Who wants to start with the hidden immunity idol? Rachel, go.
Yeah, in terms of Survivor Legacy, this is something that I was looking at when ranking seasons, okay, in terms of new advantages, new twists. So obviously this is a first advantage, and we've seen so many different iterations coming throughout these seasons. And I think it's been alluded to, but Judd had the clue and then Gary found it without the clue. So it's so interesting how now that has evolved. And then Russell Hantz in Samoa also finding idols without clues, to now there's barely any clues in Survivor and everyone just finds idols without clues. So it's interesting to see that transition from, okay, there's no such thing as this advantage, and then the idol comes in. And previously the idol, you could play it before people even go and cast votes. So people would know, oh, that person is already safe. And now it's changed and it's become, okay, after votes, now you play the idol. So it's sort of a risk. You don't know if you need it or not, to things like the super idol being played even after the votes are read. So I think in terms of Survivor Legacy, it's interesting how this is the first idol and everything. But in terms of overall season, I would still rank it low. Like Flynn was just saying, I'm not a fan. For me, opposite maybe, I'm not a fan of these mixed returnee with newbie seasons. I think it's super bad and an unfair advantage. And the person that's the returnee always makes it super far into the game. Like we talked about with Redemption Island earlier, all these returnee newbie seasons, the winner is the returnee, like Redemption Island, both fans versus favorite season, Blood versus Water with Tyson, or the returnee makes it to the finale. So here in Guatemala with Stephanie, South Pacific with Coach, Philippines. The only one with returnees and newbies is Edge of Extinction, where the returnees didn't make it to the end. So I just think it's such an unfair advantage to mix new people with newbies.
Yeah. And Alyssa, the most forgettable season of all time. What are your thoughts? Anything memorable in a forgettable mess of a season?
So I guess a fun fact about me was that Stephanie LaGrossa was my favorite Survivor player for 10 years. So the fact that she got to come back, I watched Survivor Palau live. I was 6 or 7 at the time, I think. And I imprinted on Stephanie LaGrossa like a baby duckling. And so the fact that I got to watch her play Survivor again, and the fact that she almost won Survivor was like ecstatic for me as a small child. And I guess like one of the reasons that I haven't personally rewatched Guatemala is because I know that like it would take away the magic of it from me. So I guess to answer your question in a much more concise way, just like Stephanie coming as a runner-up in Survivor Guatemala will forever be the thing that I remember it by. And I will forever be salty that she did not win, because that would have been like child me's dream.
In my notes, I have for the most iconic moment of the season being starting the game off with that 11-mile trek, dehydration, starting that game off with that kind of tone. Do we like when seasons start off this kind of way? I know Vanuatu does a kind of similar thing. Or do we want to have people start the game rested because they're going to get tired throughout the game anyway? Or do we want them to be, boom, you're in this, start the game off on a depleted level already? Flynn, you're a personal trainer. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, it is brutal. But like you said, it wasn't fun to see that entire first episode. The first 20 minutes of the episode is just people pretty much, you're hoping they don't die on you. So seeing all those big guys go down. But I don't know, it does show, again, we talk about all the time, Survivor doesn't, you don't show how hard Survivor is. Guatemala shows how hard Survivor is right off the bat. But, it didn't, did they really, who was the team that lost that first challenge? All the big guys. I can't remember their name. All their big guys just went down, and it's just not fun to watch. That's the episode for you. Poor Gary, this first boot this season, that poor guy had no chance from the start. So in that regard, I don't really like it, but so I'm kind of 50-50. I like, I'm probably more 75 dislike. It's cool to see like how brutal it is. It's a cakewalk. Oh man, I don't know what that one. It's a cake.
Here's our rapid fire question of Survivor Guatemala. Flynn, this one's actually for you, so get ready to go again. And chat, get ready. Survivor Guatemala is too forgettable of a season. I didn't want to do a question for this. Out of everyone here on the panel, who would do the best on Survivor? Go. You can pick yourself.
Yeah, me.
Oh, okay. You can't pick yourself. I lied. You can't pick yourself. Anyone else here? Go.
We did this last week, Russell, and I won. So yeah, that's the answer.
Yourself? Okay, boom. People in the chat, who do you think would do the best out of Survivor out of all 5 of us here? Let me know.
And what archetype would we fit in, too? I'm interested to see that.
That's a good question. Number 34 here on our list with 145 points. A season that in all our rankings of all the Survivor YouTubers, all the Survivor content creators, putting them all together, this one had some of the most variety out of everyone. I put it 39th. And for example, Flynn put it 23rd. We have Rachel at 21st. We have number 34, Survivor Caramoan. So I had it 39th out of 42, Flynn 23rd, Rachel 21st, Alyssa 32nd, and Peridiam as well 39th. So average to worst, we had a few people that did actually enjoy this season. We'll start with you, Peridiam. You ranked it the same as me, 39th out of 42. Is there anything to love about this season, or is it just put it in the trash?
I think it was actually 40 out of 42. Either way, it's it's weird because I did really like Micronesia, so I'm mixed on the whole fans faves twist. It's super unfair, but it just like really makes for good TV, or it makes for Caramoan. The faves were not faves, which is a big problem, and they didn't really live up to their fave status, I guess. Maybe they did because they really weren't faves. The fans were also kind of just not that fascinating to watch. I found the pre-merge to be one of the worst in the show's history. It's pretty dull. You get a lot of action with Shamar at the beginning, but then he gets medevaced from like a cut eye, which is pretty serious, but still, it's not very enjoyable to watch people get medevaced, in my opinion. Then you end up with, which is also again going to contrast with my opinion on Micronesia, but there you go. We are complicated. The opinions just don't make sense sometimes. I think it's just the people in general. Like the fans are not very fun to watch. The post-merge does get a little bit exciting, and for me, it somewhat elevates it. I still remember watching Malcolm play the idols, multiple idols standing up, and the Philip Shepard getting blasted out, and it's like, what? Like up to that point, again, it kind of had that Russell Hantz effect where he had never been voted out before. And Philip, for me, was such a presence on Redemption Island, and then he came back, and he was such a force on Caramoan, and he was kind of the main, everything revolved around him, and he just got we'd never seen that before, really. Like multiple idols, the bottom 3 amigos were immune. So that was fun to watch. I really enjoyed that. And like Cochran again, he played a good game. I do think he tends to get both over and underrated in a weird way. Like he doesn't get a lot of credit, but then he also sometimes gets too much credit, at least from like Jeff Probst and whatnot. And he'd be the first person to say that he didn't play that great, but that's Cochran. I don't know. I'm sort of like of two minds, but I still ultimately don't look forward to watching it, partially just because it doesn't feel like it's not that fun. It gets ugly at times. Like Corinne she gets a little nasty. It's unfortunate. Yeah, not my favorite cast, and I would have preferred a slightly better boot order. Also, Brenda and Eric get totally shafted despite going so far into the game, and learning about Eric, the story behind his medevac makes it really unfortunate. It didn't have to happen. And then also Brenda like getting totally just purpled. She's so invisible throughout the entire season. I would have swapped a lot of different placements of these players if I could. So.
And trying to go from the dark side to the bright side, Rachel, you ranked this season 21 out of 42, right down the middle. Why?
Yeah, it's average. So I feel like it's not too good, it's not too bad, it's sort of meh, in the middle. Similar to having that returnee player with new player. This is returnees and newbies, which I'm not a fan of because I think it's inherently unfair to have those people come back against people that maybe don't know what they're doing at all. But I think some of the good points, like the post-merge was interesting. Pre-merge, probably couldn't name anyone for you all. They're all a big blob there. With the Three Migos Alliance, the messed up idol play with Malcolm getting Reynolds to play the idol on him, but it was actually wrong. Andrea getting voted out with an idol. Brenda choosing Dawn to do the family visit, but then Jeff says, hey, actually, you can give everyone else the family visit and you two don't get the family visit. I feel like we should see more, pros, cons, advantage, rewards like that, where people have to cut some people and make some people mad, whether they choose to give people a family visit or not.
Yeah, and it's crazy because this season is one of the most boring seasons, a lot of boring episodes, a lot of boring moments, but there's also a few distinct moments that are just so iconic and stick out the most. Flynn, can you talk a little bit about those iconic moments this season?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm kind of Rachel's regard. Right? It's probably the worst pre-merge of all time, but man, that post-merge, it's moment after moment. We probably have the worst idol misplay from Malcolm. Or no, it was Redo who played for Malcolm in the last second. That's fun. And Corinne's blindside in general to start off the merge. Probably the most iconic moment, though, is probably that double idol play, filling idol and now Phillip. Andrew going home with that in her pocket, Brenda's ruthless blindside. How does Eddie make it to the Final Four despite voting wrong every time? That's amazing. So there are so many great moments, maybe not great moments, they're really, really, big time moments this season. And that post-merge just doesn't stop. If I think your question was, what's the most iconic? Probably that double idol play on Phillip. And I will say about Cochran, say what you will about him. It is crazy to see though, and he had an easy win, probably like the most amount of pregame going in, probably the easiest ride to the win, to the end a winner's ever had. But it's still crazy to see this guy who freaked out his very first tribal council go on to just dominate a season of Survivor. So I've always been, say what you will about his win. It's still cool to see Cochran win Survivor. So
there's also a big difference though between an iconic moment and a big moment versus like a smart move in the game. That's kind of like the big move-itis kind of thing. Does Malcolm do better this season if he doesn't do that double idol, or is it just good TV? He knows he was screwed over anyway. Flynn.
Oh well, they should have gone for someone other than Phillip, right?
I think the strategy behind it, someone does it better later, but you don't say who you're going for. So you try and hope for that majority of lines turns on themselves instead of what actually ends up happening.
But also would be very scary to hold on to an idol though when you're in. So
scary.
Their Three Amigos just played pretty badly though, to be honest. As much as they were underdogs.
And chat's been talking about this a bunch. We've not really touched on it at all yet. The brand enhanced meltdown. Alyssa, walk us through that.
Well, Brandon Hans had a meltdown. I feel like you asked about iconic moments of the season, and I feel like one of the iconic moments of the season is like Jeff Probst giving Brandon Hans like a shoulder massage. And so, Brandon melted down. I feel like a lot of his tribe members, he dumped out the rice and beans at his tribe. And I feel like a lot of his tribe members maybe feared for their safety, just because it seemed like Brandon was not an entirely stable guy. And I believe he also threatened physical violence. And so I feel this was the first tribal council vote out that didn't happen at tribal council. It was a total verbal thing at the immunity challenge where they're just like, yeah, we want to vote Brandon out, and then proceed to vote him out at the immunity challenge. So that was just a whole wild and wacky situation.
Yeah. Okay, it's time. Rapid fire question. Chat, get ready for it. Type it out fast. And Rachel, should we try fans versus favorites again?
Oh, you give. See, I would say no, because I don't like mixing the newbies and the returnees. But also, if you actually have like legit fans and legit favorites, then it could be interesting. But I feel like the fans, they should be people that maybe know somewhat of the game, so they could play a similar game as a returnee player, someone that's willing to be cutthroat, someone that isn't going to be a follower to like a fan, someone that isn't going to just grovel at the feet of like their superstar, super love, like super fan of the show. So I feel like if they were to do it again, like the casting would have to be different.
Yeah. And I think casting has improved since the Dark Age of Survivor, so that probably would happen. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised. I thought a lot of the people in the chat would say no. We're getting pretty much 50-50 down the middle. People saying yes, no. If the fans are actually fans and if the favorites are actually favorites, then they'd be down for it.
Well,
Number
the yeses are the fans who want to be on the fans tribe, and then yeah,
Face off against Christian. Yeah. How cool would that be?
Let's do something quick with this before we move on. Everyone pick one favorite to come back to play Survivor for a fans versus favorite season. I'll start with Omar, Survivor 42. We'll go in order. Flynn, you're next.
I mean, I already said Christian. I mean, no, easy pick there, but
Rachel.
Ooh, I'd say Angelina for the
Good
drama.
you know, David or Goliath.
Alyssa.
Marianne from Survivor 42.
She can't be
No
on
winners.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Hold on.
no pressure.
Peridiam, you
Well-
go.
Yeah, I was gonna say Peridiam, you go.
Well, I was gonna
Ricard.
say Christian,
Ricard.
and I said, oh, he said Christian. I was gonna say Angelina, and then she said Angelina. Can I say
Yeah,
Mike White? I'll say Mike White.
Oh, Mike White, go. Alyssa.
Ricard.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
Good. Number 33, guys. We have 2 seasons left for today's podcast.
Great podcast, y'all. It's fun.
Yeah, number 33, 156 points. A season with a super interesting twist and I think wasted potential that could have gone on better. I liked the hype in the promo preseason. We got Survivor, Ghost Island. I actually ranked it 33 out of 42, so the exact same as the average. Flynn 34 out of 42, Rachel 23, Alyssa 24, and Peridiam 38. So we got a good variety here of people that were right on the average, a little over, a little under. We'll start with you, Flynn, right on the average at 34. What are your thoughts on this season? Do you like the twist?
I mean, it's an interesting twist. I don't know. You probably picked. I probably shouldn't start with this because that's the thing. I have like nothing to add to this season. It's just so forgettable, man. Like you have of course, Dom and Wendell dominating. You have Chris's, insane pre-merge arc. I'm obviously a huge fan of the show, and I can barely like tell you why like Libby went home. I mean, I guess because she was ally of Chris, or like, I mean, I guess the pre-merge is pretty decent, but it is just a slog to get through. That post-merge is too brutal, and even like I said, the pre-merge is decent, but nothing great. Again, it's 3 big characters. Some couple like a Bradley's a fun person. A James, is the only person to go against, to blindside Dom and Wendell. That's cool. It's a shame he got taken. That's the problem. I feel like a lot of the big time players. What's up on Island? I feel like people could have challenged Dom, like a James, like we saw, like a Bradley. They all went home early. Like a Stephanie, that's a brutal elimination. Maybe like a Brendan, he was kind of like the leader of Malolo before the tribe swap, and he got screwed over. So I have nothing really. I mean, nothing really added this season. So forgettable, so boring.
Well, I'll say one of what I think the best things about this season was that feeling of nostalgia, bringing these things back. Obviously, I don't think it ends up working out too well. We have people, like I talked about earlier in this podcast, almost at the very beginning now, where I said it's really anticlimactic, people getting sent to Ghost Island, and you don't get to play today. That's really dumb. I don't like that. There's got to be ways to balance all these advantages we're putting into the game, but it's also not a good thing when I found the highlight of the episode for me was watching clips from older seasons. Not this new stuff. I don't care about that. I wanted to see this nostalgia. I want to see James's 2 idol play moment and things like that.
But I agree, though. I feel like the theme is interesting, but production, I don't think, did it correctly. Like, similar to you, Russell, I like how they have these old advantages. They're showing those old clips of how these advantages were misplayed their first season. Can people learn from these past castaways' mistakes? But I feel like the issue, maybe where it falls a little bit flat, is that this is a new player cast. I feel like it would have been more nostalgic. Okay, Ghost Island, it's a returnee player season. You bring back people whose advantages are living on Ghost Island, and maybe they get to win it again. Can they reverse the curse? Can they do it better the second time? So, like, if you maybe have fan favorite Sierra Dawn Thomas there getting the legacy advantage again, or JT getting his Game Changers idol, it would have been interesting to see the past players maybe get these advantages rather than new people get it and maybe mess it up.
Yeah. So Peridiam, are you team Dom or team Wendell?
In what regard? Just in general?
Well, for win the game, the tie vote, right?
I mean, I did think
end.
Dom was going to win going into it. But I was totally cool with Wendell winning it too. I mean, it was 50-50, came down to Laurel.
Yeah.
So, but I did think Dom was going to win going in.
Yeah, and we'll ask you this in the chat too, guys. We'll go down the list. Alyssa, did you think going into that tie vote, Dom or Wendell?
I mean, I remember wanting Dom to win, but when it came out that Laurel was going to be the one casting the tie vote, I was pretty sure it was going to be Wendell.
Mm-hmm.
Flynn?
Well, yeah, because didn't like the tribal count before, like Wendell played his idol on Laurel. That kind of like sealed the deal for me.
Ceridian says yes, Peridiam, team Dom all the way. And then Rachel, you as well? What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like throughout the season, we've seen Wendell and Laurel bond, and so it would make sense that Laurel would vote for Wendell at the end over Dom.
And I think you have here one of the most boring new-ish school seasons of all time with that Navidi Strong. As you can see here, we're all struggling to talk about Survivor Ghost Island, and that's for good reason. So we'll get that rapid-fire question going. Chat, let's get ready for it. We kind of already talked about this. Rachel, you stole the question a little bit. Alyssa, would the twist work better with returning players?
I think it would work better with returning players, but not the returning players who played the twist wrong, but like the returning players who saw the fallout of playing the twist wrong. So like bring back someone who got screwed over because their ally like went home with 2 idols in their pocket, or someone who got like screwed over by their ally doing something stupid with an advantage, just because I feel like it's one of those things where if you give someone like their one big Survivor mistake and the chance to correct it, they overcorrect. Like you see how in like Second Chances, Stephen Fishback got so focused on getting out the golden boy that he, as soon as he voted Joe out, he was gone too. And so I feel like it would be that kind of thing where as soon as someone like got to clear their Survivor conscience, get the ghost out of their Survivor closet, so to speak, they would just end up going home immediately after. And I feel like that wouldn't be much more fun of a season. I feel like giving people who were familiar with it but had like some emotional distance the chance to redo it would be more interesting.
So basically, this could be like bring back Amanda Kimmel, because she was there for Eric giving up immunity, she was there for James getting voted out, and she was there for JT giving away his idol.
Wow.
Bring back Amanda Kimmel and clone her 3 times, and then also bring back, I don't know, like Natalie Bolton, who saw Amanda like basically shoot herself in the foot.
What if Amanda Kimmel's the curse? What if she...
Yeah.
Okay, no, Amanda Kimmel for Island of the Idols. Boom.
I mean, Amanda Kimmel is also the reason that Sari has never won Survivor, so...
Damn, there you go.
Number 32, the last season we'll be talking about today. We got more stuff in store, though, after that. The final season, another Dark Age season with 166 points. Remember, guys, we started with 40-ish points with Survivor Thailand at the start of this video. Now at 166. Survivor South Pacific. I ranked it 21, Flynn 20, Rachel 25, Alyssa 29, and Peridiam, you're at 31. Flynn, I know you're really excited to talk about this season, so I'll let you just start with whatever you want.
So, okay, there's a lot. So here's the thing. I think people going to South Pacific, they know this part of the Dark Ages. They see Ozzy and Coach coming back, like, what the heck? It's Redemption Island. And there are, what's up, Mud Survivor? There are negatives, obviously. Probably like some of the most purple players of all time. I mean, Elise, Keith and Whitney, Rick. I mean, who are these people? And of course, like the Cold Alliance is pretty dark as well. And so, but I think if you go into season, just expecting a season of Survivor and just enjoy it for what it is, instead of like, automatically, because obviously most people watch Redemption Island before this. Same thing with me in the first time I watched it. So I didn't really give much of a chance, right? When I rewatch a season and just go within it, so this is a huge season that went up in my rankings once I rewatch it. Once you go in this season, just, enjoying Survivor, it really is, I think, an enjoyable season, or at least Milo tier. That pre-merge especially is very interesting. Like, Cochran somehow survives all 4 of those tribal councils. The Elise 3-2-2 blindside is pretty interesting with, Jim orchestrating it and, Keith and Whitney putting their votes on Dawn to, like, not choose a side. That I'm surprised that's not done more often these days. That's cool. The whole Stacy tirade on Coach, the biggest meme there is at the Redemption Island, that's so iconic, and her elimination is iconic. And then, of course, the penultimate to the merge, 2 amazing episodes where Ozzy saves Cochran, goes to, Redemption Island himself, wins it, beats Christine, another good character. And then that merge episode is so iconic. It plays the idol wrong, it's a split vote, but then Cochran flips on the revote. That's amazing. And they get the Pogongi done quickly. They learned their lesson. It's 3 episodes with all 5 of them going. They do a couple double tribal councils, 2 split episodes. So it's over just like that. And, to be fair, like Edna and Cochran are obvious boots after that. So take that for what you will. But the end game is still pretty fun, with everything happening with Brendan giving up his immunity. That's crazy. And then Ozzy comes back. He survives it all. You think he's going to challenge his way to the end, only for Sophie at the very last tribal count, at the very last immunity challenge. Probably like save Survivor in a way, because who knows how many times we would have got Redemption Island if like Ozzy or Coach won this season. Yeah, I can see that list. Like, who knows? And, and the other big thing, you have to rewatch this season for Sophie. If any reason, watch her gameplay. She's invisible.
It's there, I promise. A little bit.
Yes, it feels the first time. She comes across as a brat. But when you realize she's playing the game she's playing, here's the thing. She dominated this season. She dominated her alliance, but in no way ever has. Like, most people want to make those big moves. And she's like, no. You're not going to make those big moves. I'm going to tell you not to make those big moves. And because you're not making those big moves and I'm laying back and I know I can beat you, Albert, and you, Coach, that's going to win me Survivor. It's not sexy whatsoever, but it's really no one's ever done that. So, there is a lot of things you have to overlook for South Pacific, but if you can, I get it's hard, but if you can, it's a pretty enjoyable season.
Peridiam, I know you rank Survivor Redemption Island as the worst season of all time. This season also includes Redemption Island. What is different about this season that gives it that extra 10 or so points above Survivor Redemption Island?
I was going to say everything that Flynn just said is what gives it.
Yeah, we're both behind the
boost.
season. Yeah.
Yeah, because I did have the similar feeling watching Redemption Island way back when, 10 years ago or whatever. And it was really, again, it was like I got into Survivor with Survivor Token Chains. And for me, I loved it. And then Samoa was really fun. It was a weird one to have as your second season. And then you start with Heroes versus Villains. And that's like insane. And so being able to rewatch 20 seasons up to that point, it was weird to get into what was the Dark Ages or just these repetitious, not really loving, anticipating Wednesday night or whatever, Thursday night, whenever it was on. That was a weird feeling at the time, and I think it gets better. Like, Flynn is listing off all these moments that I'm like, yeah, I did like that. I did like that. I did like that moment. I did like that character. I did like that storyline. There are a lot of really funny, unintentionally funny moments on South Pacific that, for me, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have had South Pacific probably right behind Redemption Island. I really didn't care for it at the time. It was not fun to watch. And then South Pacific, and then One World was right after, and that was another season that it was like bottom 3, back to back to back. And that's kind of how these seasons got that reputation for being the Dark Ages. It's because watching them live week in and week out was just insufferable, and the fan base was so bored and just not having a good time. And I just remembered it was just, I've never had such little excitement in the circles I was watching Survivor with at the time as I was watching these seasons. But going back, we've been able to appreciate the pre-merge. We've been able to appreciate these wacky characters. Redemption Island gives them the chance to shine a little more. We see a little bit more of an interesting play of, Ozzy using it. We get Christine and Stacy are fun. The Colt storyline is weird, but in a way fascinating. I have said that I think that the final 5 of South Pacific is one of the best episodes, at least as far as theme goes. It is a dark, and fascinating episode of Survivor that you'll never get ever again. It's the one where Brandon gives up his immunity. It's eerie in a way to see how it all goes down, and it makes you ask a lot of questions about like what's good and what's ethical and what it makes sense for Survivor and how people justify doing things that seem morally questionable. And it's not something that comes up in Survivor, especially 23 seasons in. It goes back to like Survivor 1 at that point. But ultimately, I still don't love it a lot, and I wouldn't want a lot of seasons to be like it. And Sophie loved the win, said it's very underrated, but it's also not really exciting. I do appreciate being able to like get excited for the winner to really put their mark on the season. And it really, another thing I get really frustrated is that so much of the season it devolves into Coach and Ozzy and Brandon and Cochran, and that's it. And it's these 4 guys and they get all the screen time, and that's what you're gonna get. Sophie's invisible, Rick is invisible, the Savai's are mostly like whatever. They get pagonged, which isn't that fun. So there's that frustration that keeps it from being very high for me. Yeah,
there's definitely bad moments. Yeah,
there's a lot there,
high,
good and bad, and that's why it's ranked 32, right?
Yeah.
Rachel, you've talked about Survivor captain seasons and these returning half fans, half favorites, why you don't really like them. Do you like this? I want you to talk about Coach a little more. Do you like this version of Coach compared to the other ones we get to see, or do you think this is a little too extreme?
Ooh, good question. I feel like for Coach here, it seems like he's sort of underrated. Getting to Final Tribal Council, people are like, this is Coach 1.0 in Tocantins. He's just, that goofy dude doing all of this stuff on the island, doing all of his stories. But I feel like he's very underrated. Like, he was leading this tribe with all of the religion and faith talk. And so it is weird and interesting. Like, Survivor is this social experiment to see how they're able to use religion in order to manipulate people, which, like Peridiam said, we're probably not going to see something like this ever again on TV. But as a social experiment, I think that is really interesting to watch. And for these, seasons where these people are coming back, it does seem like it's a little bit, they're trying to rig it for the player that comes back. So I bet production, they wanted Coach to win this. They wanted Boston Rob to win. They want that returnee player to come and win the season. So I think it's funny, Sophie gets no screen time and then she just wins the season, and she is the non-religious person of this season and sort of messes up the production's plans of having Coach or Ozzy win the season. And also Ozzy losing at that final immunity challenge and then Sophie voting him out. I think it's just so full circle, especially, and then with like the poor treatment of Cochran flips, and then Cochran's voted out shortly thereafter. It's very much, here are the consequences of your actions. You get a lot of like satisfaction. Okay, you did this, and you see the fallout a few episodes later.
Yeah, exactly. And on the flip side of things, we have Coach. And then we have, sadly, I wish the season was edited better. We would see more Sophie. On the flip side of Coach, we have Ozzy. Alyssa, this version of Ozzy voting himself out of the game, possibly winning in the end if he wins a challenge. Do we like this version of Ozzy, or is this too much Ozzy at this point? What do you think, Alyssa?
I think it's too much Ozzy at this point. I feel like I was done with Ozzy after his appearance in Micronesia. I was like, okay, he did his whole thing. He found out again that his strategy doesn't work. I guess it's one of those things where they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing multiple times and expecting different results. And I feel like that was Ozzy this season. He's tried again and again to kind of win as the athletic person, as the challenge beast. And it's obvious it hasn't worked yet, Ozzy. Why do you think it's going to work now? Because I feel like the problem with the challenge beast as a strategy, especially for Ozzy, is that you see that all you need is one lose and that's your whole game down the toilet. And so I admire that he realized that he probably would do better on Redemption Island than in the game. But at the same time, it's kind of dude, this doesn't work. Why are you still doing it?
Yeah, getting voted out's better for him than actually being in the game. That's pretty.
That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's just
and almost honestly almost one of them. Honestly, that's crazy.
And so moving from that, we have the last rapid fire question. Chat, get ready. Peridiam, get ready. I actually saw this on Twitter maybe a couple days ago. Coach did an interview with the Survivor Snyder podcast. He stated on this podcast that Ozzy proposed to him to take Ozzy and Albert to a fire-making challenge, and let's assume Ozzy wins this. Coach states and highly states that he would win that final 3. Ozzy, Coach, and Sophie. Is this cap? Is Coach just lying out of his ass, or is this true?
I don't think Coach is lying. I just don't think Coach is right.
Yeah, that's the answer.
When I saw that clip, I was like, no, Coach, what are you talking about?
I think Coach fully believes he would win that. I don't know if that's what would actually happen. I think we're looking at an Ozzy slam dunk.
Yeah.
Based on everything I've heard, it seems like the Savaies were looking to vote for Ozzy hardcore. I mean, your coach completely thinks his own game going into the end of that season. He makes some of the worst deals that you'll ever see on Survivor, and they don't make sense. And I don't think Coach is going to win that.
When I saw that clip, that was insane. Okay, awesome.
Plus, like, Coach couldn't defend himself against, like, Sophie. I don't think he stands a chance against Ozzy. Ozzy would have crushed Sophie, too. If they, like, so I think Sophie's admitted that. Like, if Ozzy was there, he wins hands down.
Okay, here we go, everybody. Buff time, buff time, buff time. Remember, do hashtag buff in the chat. Get this back up here. I'll give you guys a few seconds if you haven't done it yet. Hashtag buff if you want to win the Survivor buff, the Taku buff.
I picked, by the way. So
yeah, maybe I should do this as well. No. We got 46 entries. I'll give it a few more seconds. 47 entries. Oh, people are doing it again. 5, 4. Oh, okay, I'll give it a second.
yeah,
Chat's
no, I
going
think you
crazy
should let
here.
people. Yeah. Last chance.
Thanks for doing this, everyone. This was really fun.
This is fun. Yeah, I just want to say that real quick, guys. This is fun. Appreciate all the comments.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments what you disagree most with. And seasons.
Which season?
Yeah.
Who had the worst take? Who had the best
Guatemala is not forgettable. Come on, what's that? Let's not do that.
We'll give it a few seconds here. Before we get there, any seasons that you guys are surprised weren't in this bottom tier list?
Ooh,
looking at what's coming, I was a little bit surprised to not see like maybe Game Changers.
yeah.
I don't know if I would say I'm surprised, but I guess not having like All Stars or even Survivor 41, just given its reputation. But
And then any seasons you're surprised that were here that are like, oh no, this is way better than this. Obviously, based on your rankings. it would be-
Guatemala.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I expected Guatemala to be a lot higher.
I did too. I'm surprised it's, yeah.
Okay. Here we go. 58. If you didn't comment it yet, that's your fault, chat. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Good luck.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, last second.
Logan Perk 17, you're the winner of this Taku buff. Either private message me on Discord or on Instagram or something, and I'll make sure to get you this buff. That was awesome. And last thing before we close things out, the whole kind of point of doing this that me and Flynn got to was comparing this to RHAP's Survivor rankings. So I'm going to just list these off quickly. And it's a little confusing because in the RHAP one, there was only 40 seasons at the time. So it gets a little mixed up. I'm only going to talk about the bottom 11 seasons in both. So in last place for the YouTube, we had obviously Thailand, Island of the Idols, Redemption Island, Nicaragua, One World, Fiji, Worlds Apart, Guatemala, Caramoan, Ghost Island, and then South Pacific. The bottom few were very similar for the RHAP listeners. It was Island of the Idols, Redemption Island, Thailand. So the bottom 3 were literally just interchangeable. It gets a little confusing after that. They had One World. Then they had Edge of Extinction, bottom 1, 2, 3, 4. They had Edge of Extinction, bottom 5. Worlds Apart, Nicaragua, Survivor HHH, which we didn't have in our list. They had Survivor Ghost Island. Again, next after that, they had Survivor Game Changers. And lastly, they had Survivor Caramoan. So a few differences here and there. Obviously, those bottom 3, I think everyone or most of the community can agree those bottom 3 are going to be there. But it was kind of cool to see those few differences.
And I'll say that real quick. That's kind of one of the reasons why I want to do these season rankings. Just see how like we as YouTubers would compare to more of the casual audience. You know what I mean? So that was one of the big reasons why I kind of like compared to like Hall of Fame voting and like base sports or whatever. Because we do this for a lot. We podcast. Me, you, Peridiam, Russell. We edit. All this stuff. And Society, same thing. Once Upon an Island. So not to say like we're better than like the casual, but I was always interested to see like how they were different from casual rankings that I just flat out disagree with. We
spend an inordinate amount of time watching and talking about these shows and loving it.
And that's really what it came down to. They're just like Hall of Famer voters, right? Even more than the casual fans. So.
And because the whole kind of point of this series, we're only going to have every content creator on once, I wanted to give everyone a chance to explain one of their other picks that in a season they won't be talking about. So I have everyone here who had maybe a hot take compared to everyone else and kind of go over that quickly. We'll start with you, Peridiam.
Yeah, I know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, okay.
Wait, what were you going to say? I was curious what you...
Cook Islands.
Oh, okay. That was actually not what I was going to say, but that's a good point because I noticed you had it very high. Yeah,
So
I have Cook Islands. I have it in my bottom 10.
Yeah.
I find
that
Cook
was
Islands...
the lowest.
Yeah, that was the lowest. I didn't know. I was looking over at the rankings and I was like, what is my hottest take compared to the rest of the field? And I guess it's that one or Gabon. Maybe you guys don't love Gabon. I do like Gabon. I know Gideon likes Gabon. Cook Islands. It feels the more you learn about it, the more disingenuous it feels. It's also like an underdog story that isn't as fun to watch the second time around because you already know everything. The pre-merge is just a smorgasbord of random people getting voted out. In what order? Who knows? Why? Who cares? It's irrelevant once the merge happens or the bottle twist. The bottle twist really sours me on it. Unfortunately, I also think God Idol, the superpowered idol, is just not one of my favorite twists in the history of the show.
Oh, what a way to end it.
Everyone's in the chat say thank you to Tim. Yeah.
Yo, that's clutch. Last second.
Yeah.
So that's why Cook Islands for me is fine. It has a lot of all-stars, but I feel like it's more style over substance. It's very easy to introduce people. I always say it's the best season, one of the best seasons to introduce people to Survivor. Obviously, the first episode's a little weird when it's like dividing everyone by race. That's a little questionable. Stunt casting. Survivor lost a lot of their sponsors after doing that. But it ultimately has like a very feel-good, satisfying ending, and people love that. So I'm always like, you're not really going to be that bothered if you're watching it for the first time, and you're going to end up loving Yule. You'll probably love Ozzy to some extent. You'll love the underdog narrative. But really, like, Gabon should be higher. That's another one.
So, Alyssa, I'm going to tell the chat, too. I'm going to let you pick which one you want to defend.
No, okay. I was going to call this out, but...
You rank in Survivor Gabon as the worst season of all time, and you ranked Pearl Islands as the 5th worst season of all time.
Ooh,
so you can pick one of these two and defend yourself.
I feel like
I love it.
I'll do Pearl Islands because that's the one that I feel like people are going to roast me more for. And I feel like one of the reasons I don't like Pearl Islands is because I don't really like Rupert as a character, as a player. I feel like I see Rupert getting a lot of love and I don't get it. I don't particularly like it. I tried to introduce Survivor to one of my friends and I picked Pearl Islands as like a season to show them because a lot of people say it's good, and we got to my grandmother died and my friend was like, I'm never watching Survivor again, this dude's a sociopath. And I was like, okay, I don't have any defense against that because the grandmother dying is like an iconic Survivor moment, but also one that I feel like if you're not a Survivor fan is kind of like, what the F? And then also I feel like if I'm going to show people Sandra at her best, I'm not going to show them Pearl Island. I'm going to show her Heroes versus Villains and her like utterly dominating everyone in Heroes versus Villains, just because I feel like that is the better Sandra win than Pearl Island. So
there you go. And Rachel, you got to try and defend a little bit your Vanuatu as one of the worst seasons. 38 out of 42.
Yeah, problems with that.
Ooh, yeah, I see for our like combined average rankings, it's a little bit higher. No spoilers, but I feel like for me, it's one of those forgettable seasons when we all are talking and you're like, I don't really have much to say about it. For me, I'm like, okay, I remember Amy and like, that's pretty much it. So that I
forget about Rory.
Like I only know Amy and that's it.
Fair. Well, we held over 100 people watching this the entire time. That is insane to me.
Was it? Yeah, it was an update.
Everyone in chat for chatting, communicating Survivor, keeping listening. Thank you so much for listening to Survivor for over 2 hours. That's insane to me, wanting to hear us talk about this show for over 2 hours. Come back next week, next Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got some more Survivor action. We're joined by Idled Out and the Survivor Buffs over on Flynnmasters channel.
Yeah.
So look forward to that. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe to me. My video on Tuesday, I'm actually doing the whole video breaking down my Survivor rankings from worst to best that I used for this overall panel. So that's going to be kind of interesting. You get to see my whole breakdown there. Survivor Scholars, thank you so much for joining this. Where can people find you?
Yeah, thank you all so much for inviting us. Alyssa and I are here on YouTube with under Survivor Scholars, so definitely check us out. Tomorrow night, we'll be talking about the finale episodes of Survivor SA, so Survivor South Africa. During the off season of US Survivor, we'll talk like the challenge, other foreign seasons of Survivor, so check us out. It's a fun time.
And Peridiam, it was a pleasure meeting you, talking with you, the GOAT of Survivor YouTube. Can you give us a little sneak peek what you got in store coming soon for Survivor content as Big Brother starts to close out?
Yeah, I'm so in the depths of Big Brother 24 right now. Although it's not going the way I was hoping. But yes, Survivor's coming back. I'll be back in less than a month. We're gonna be hitting it up at least at the latest the 21st of September. So it's already the 26th of August. So I don't know exactly. I haven't made any Survivor videos yet, but I'll be back in less than a month for the Survivor fans.
And of course, my co-host Flynn, what do you got in store soon for people to look forward to?
Well, so for those of you who don't know, I've kind of become, even though I'm kind of a co-host, I'm kind of a Hell's Kitchen YouTuber at this point, for those of you who haven't realized. But once Survivor does come back, the In Blank Minute series will be coming back, probably hopefully to do Guatemala, 2 heroes versus villains throughout the week. And for those of you who don't know, just a quick summary, what it sounds like, right? Like we'll talk about Guatemala for like 16 minutes or whatever, kind of summary of the seasons, because I know we don't all have time to rewatch, or you don't want to rewatch it. So it's just kind of easy, fun way to, literally just view an entire Survivor season. So, and if you, I know you might not watch Hell's Kitchen, but I do some really fun videos about that. So if you're all interested to watch, Ramsay get crazy at some amateur chefs, hey, you don't have to be a fan of the show to watch that too. So give that. Awesome. And of course, I'll be hosting next week, of course, like Russell said. So
this was the first live stream I ever did. Thank you all so much for the support. If there's any ways we can improve this, it's kind of a work in progress right now. Let me know in the comments how to improve this series. And peace.